feedback, I think some of the questions and some of the follow-up that we sort of picked up on last night was great. We've got the bigger picture. Where do we start? How can I start? How can I get into something quite easily? Show me how to get into this, because we talked about center of excellence, building a practice, these big revenue opportunities. And I think considering the size of the audience and the range, what I wanted to do today was thinking about how do we get started. I figure perhaps one of the best ways is just to jump into the application. So I'm going to try and keep this kind of skinny in terms of PowerPoint to start with. If you've got questions, please throw them into the chat. If I can't answer them as we go through, we'll pick them up and do those afterwards. So figuring how do we start and how do we do something, best example for me is the first Power App that I wrote. So my colleagues at Ingram have seen this a couple of times. We did this just as a use case scenario. Perhaps useful just to run through it. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time on this because we talked about common data service, SharePoint, integration, third-party applications. Really, really simple to start with. So from make.powerapps.com, this is a use case scenario, real life example. Friend of mine working in a tile shop capturing Net Promoter Score. And Net Promoter Score, if anybody doesn't know, is just that measure of customer satisfaction on a scale of 0 to 10. Did we provide great service, or was it terrible? Do you never want to speak to us again? And we can use that to find out opportunities. Maybe we need to train our associates to sell better, to deliver better customer service. My learning session for this was a weekend on YouTube. So we talked yesterday about how we can use docs.microsoft.com. There are learning portals, there are courses. There's also a raft of opportunity out there in YouTube. You don't have to be super clever at PowerPoint either. I know Matt is a super geek and a data geek when it comes down to Excel. Absolutely puts me to shame. I just want to show you how easy this can be. I've popped up some Excel tables. I just want to show you kind of where I started and where I was coming from. So I'm just using a bunch of Excel tables here to give me users who can log on and capture some data. This really is a quick show and tell. Associates are on employees. Apologies to Matt. I refer to him as Matt Tats, and I'm on there as a bit of a geek. So for the sake of GDPR, when we're broadcasting things publicly, I'll try and keep it light, if not entirely entertaining. And I'm working on some product ranges in some different locations. So a very, very simple table in Excel to say, and just bear this in mind as we go through. In the bathroom, I've got 3 different types of tiles I can sell. In the kitchen, I've got 4 different tiles. And in the hallway, a different subset of tiles. And this started from an example in a local retailer where we're looking to capture who did we sell to, pardon me, did we get their email, their postcode or zip code, as you call it in the USA, for instance, because if we've captured that, we can market to them afterwards. Who served, what was the project location, and did we calculate and recommend some accessories, capturing comments and a Net Promoter Score. That's all being done on spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are great if you've got 1, maybe 2 users. If you've got 3 users, we're all trying to share a spreadsheet. Doesn't matter how great your spreadsheet is, there's a chance it's going to get a bit laggy when everybody's trying to interact with it. In fact, somebody asked the question yesterday, can we use Power Apps to build a CRM system? And the answer is yes, but you could do. Something that might be of interest, I didn't grab the name of whoever asked that question. I know Matt and I are presenting a webinar tomorrow comparing Excel versus D365 CRM and some of the migration opportunities. Matt, I don't know if you want to post a link into that maybe later on, because we'll be exploring some of these ideas with kind of Power Apps and Flow and how it builds into CRM as well. Within Power Apps, I'm already probably speaking more than I planned to do. What I figured was, rather than explaining the big picture, let's just jump into a Power App. This is a Canvas app, frankly, in the style of Bluepeter for any of you in the UK. Here's one I prepared earlier, because what I want to show you is that the creation of Power Apps with fairly simple data sources, with a great way of capturing data and interacting with a user, doesn't have to be a terribly complex process. So the big picture message that we put across yesterday, I think, was a lot about the opportunity, the size, how we can build a business. We can go to a center of excellence. You don't have to do app in a day to get started, or Power Automate in a day just to get started. We can go from a fairly simple spreadsheet, any kind of database table, and really get stuck in and start to understand a process. And you see, I was speaking even more just in a demo system. It's not going to run super quick. And as we generate a Power App application, the reason I wanted to jump into this is to show you that it kind of looks and feels like Excel in terms of a lot of the programming language. This is designed to run on a mobile phone. So we'll always generate, or often generate, it's your choice, a landing page, some kind of splash page. I've got some customer data, projects and products, and then the customer satisfaction. Remember, this is about capturing Net Promoter Score and customer satisfaction. I've configured this in a way so it's going to run on a mobile phone. And whilst I'm in development mode, what I'm going to do is just preview this. I've not published this application. If I do publish the app, allocate it to users or assign it to users, you can run an application on a mobile phone. So I've just thrown a kind of splash screen, a landing page on there. You know what? I've got search and I've got sort sequences and I've got existing data. I'm not going to worry about that too much because I want to show you another way of getting to the application, just to show you how simple that could be. If you remember, I showed you a quick spreadsheet around the people that can actually log data. So in this case, let's assume that it was Matt capturing some data. And when I go to add some detail, I've not worried too much about data validation, just around capture screens, because this is just my test environment. And we'll have Martin on gmail.com. The thing I want to point out, and this is, again, if you remember that little spreadsheet that I showed you where I said I was a bit flippant and I put some nicknames in there just for GDPR processes, mutually exclusive checkboxes, because I'm only interested in which of our associates primarily help my customer if I'm working out commission. So let's say Matt was capturing some work that Kaz has done, running through the screens. This is really simple. I want to show you this because on that spreadsheet, I showed you the tile ranges. In the bathroom, I've got 3 that I can pick from. If my location was the hall, it's a different range. And finally, if I'm working in the kitchen, I've got a different subset. I'm going to show you the workings and some of the mechanisms for this in a second. Just want to kind of show you the end piece before we get back into the workings. And where I showed mutually exclusive checkboxes earlier, these are a little bit more free format. We can figure out, did we make any recommendations to the customer for accessories, and did we calculate what they needed? And I can jump in and have some free format text. If you run this on a mobile phone, you get the little speaker icon down here, so you can actually do speech to text if you want. And rather than keying in a number, I've got a slider that gives me the Net Promoter Score. A really, really simple application. A Canvas app starts from a blank piece of paper and allows you to design from scratch. So the idea of using a Canvas app is really for people who've got a little bit of experience in using Power Apps. As I say, this was my first kind of kick around in the world of Power Apps. Bit of a geeky weekend. It was obviously raining in Manchester. We were probably in lockdown. Geeky weekend. Watching YouTube, reading docs.microsoft.com and generating an application. So that's a Canvas app, and I just ran that through in preview. What I wanted to be able to show you was, for instance, if I just open the page that's on the projects and products, this is where I generated that drop-down list based on a spreadsheet. So I can identify my project location and then identify the range of tiles that I might have sold. Just clicking into the field, what I want to draw your attention to is just the right-hand side of the screen over here, because what we're looking at on this is, if I click, in fact, clicking on there, you can see exactly the same syntax for the instruction that sits behind it, because I'm sorting the product ranges based on the tile location in that spreadsheet, but by including the distinct message. If you remember on the spreadsheet, I had 3 entries for kitchen with the tiles against it. I think 4 entries for bathroom with the tiles against it. I want to sort through my inventory list, but only suggest the drop-down list for the prime locations. I said I'm no expert on Excel. I am absolutely not an expert on Excel. For anybody that's used it, you can probably look at this kind of syntax and recognize it's got a very Excel look and feel to it. So when we talk about low code and no code, I know when we presented yesterday, a lot of this is presented as, hey, it's low code, no code. You don't need to be an IT expert to get into it. And I think a lot of people, in my experience, hear that kind of message and think, yeah, come on, there's got to be something more to it. I'm going to show you this a little bit more in action as we go through the next sort of 45, 50 minutes. Really, that kind of syntax, so sort distinct to give me a breakdown of my location. And if I look at the product ranges, I'm now looking at where the tile location is equal to the project location. So that's the variable or the data that I've captured in this field. I'm searching my inventory list based on the product ranges and filtering it for the contents of the variable. So I'm using a spreadsheet just to give me a data source against that. When we move on later on in the afternoon, Craig's going to be using CDS or Dataverse. I will keep mixing between the two references where CDS is the common data service. So we'll show you that application data store in the background. This data list could be spreadsheets, SharePoint, Access, SQL tables, Azure SQL, wherever your data is and however easy it is to get to it. So we've generated an application. I said for the Canvas app, I didn't mess about. You can have shady colors that are moving around, click on a smiley face, give yourself a score. Any combination of skill set that might involve, say, PowerPoint and Excel, and you're a good chunk of the way towards being able to develop applications. That's a Canvas app. I said this was my first experience of using Power Apps. This is what I did over a weekend. This of itself was not exactly the first experience. I just want to show you how easy it can be to generate a brand new app. Because if I just jump back to the home page, when this eventually catches up with me, you can see on this landing page for Power Apps, we can generate Canvas apps, we can generate model-driven apps and portals. I'm not going to spend, I guess, any more time going through this, but just to give you a flavor, if I want to build an app and I've got a data source and I kind of don't know what I'm doing, and this was me absolutely on day one, so I hope some of you take some, maybe not inspiration, but some comfort and some knowledge out of this at least. All I've done here is I flip my spreadsheet into a table. That's the prerequisite in order to be able to generate an application. I'm working off OneDrive. I've got my application data in a table, and all I'm going to do here is point Power Apps at my table and say, go connect. Guarantee this is in real time. Really, I'm taking my life in my own hands here. Any real-time demonstration, obviously relying on server speed and access, but being able to point Power Apps at any kind of data source, ask it to go figure and generate a data-driven app with a suggestion back to you, allows you to jump into the app. Sorry, Matt, just seen a comment there to say the link to the webinar's not working. So Aisha, I think it is. Thank you for pointing that one out. With absolutely zero effort, the reason I wanted to show you that data source in the spreadsheets earlier on was just to give you the flavor for it. With absolutely zero effort, we've generated an application. And if I just process that, I mentioned earlier on, I'd show you the sort and search options. Sort by name. So Power Apps in this case has just done its best to interpret the data, suggest about what it thinks some of the key fields would be. There's awesome service in the text. If I just type in AWE, Kaz has obviously been doing a brilliant job with our customers. Predictive text, searching in on text, being able to drill into the data, and you would say at this stage it's not really a thing of beauty. However, with zero effort, we've actually generated an application, and by choosing to edit, I could go through, edit that, add a new record, change my Net Promoter Score, and simply commit that back, and it will update my spreadsheet. I only wanted to spend 10 minutes or so. I've probably already overrun a little bit just chatting through that, because what you can see from this, if we open up that detail screen, for instance, and jump into any of the fields, you can see that the syntax behind it is simply, in this case, naming on fields, and we've got properties that look, feel, and behave an awful lot like PowerPoint in terms of where we're positioning things, how we're capturing colors, how we're presenting out onto the screen, and we can choose a format that works on mobile phone, laptop, tablet, desktop, big screen, pretty much whatever you want to do. So I wanted to use that just as an opener in terms of an introduction on Power Apps, just to give you a flavor about how to jump in. I'll leave that there because Craig is going to do this in much more detail in the kind of hands-on workshop as we go through. The next opportunity that I want to jump into is to take this kind of one step beyond. And when I say one step beyond, this will properly go into a level of detail. So to do this, I'm going to really quickly try and run through an example. This is a lot more complex, very, very interesting. This is going to be using Power Automate. We're going to use artificial intelligence to scan an inbound invoice from an email receipt that's come in from one of our suppliers, throw that into an approval process with some conditional tests against it, reach out into Teams for the approver so that we've got an option to process that, bring that back and update some data in a legacy solution. Quite a lot to get through. So rather than doing this as a live demo, this is actually effectively a pre-recorded version of that demo, because I can run through some things fairly quickly. So the business scenario is an inbound invoice coming into our organization that we need to pay off. A manual process in this example will be to grab that invoice, print it off, understand who it's from, what it's for, what the value is, update the values and transact that invoice payment in a legacy system. And then as a secondary step, update the inventory record for goods receipt in another system. If I use phrases that anybody's unfamiliar with, please throw them into the chat as I go through. This traditionally would work off OCR, which is optical character recognition. So we'd scan this invoice, train the scanner and the AI engine that sits behind it to recognize key elements of the invoice and bring that data through. We're actually going to do that using an AI engine in Power Automate. So I'll run through this because this kind of process for Power Automate, we're going to call in some of the APIs, some of the function calls, some of the logical processes. Power Virtual Agents works in a fairly similar fashion to this as well. So this kind of logic and this process as we run through, as in fact anybody can get access to this, and we can drop the link in. Sorry, I'll try and answer the questions when I get to the end, and try and go through the flow on this. So Maria, I'll try and come back on your question if that's okay. So the process that we're going to build is to react when we've got an inbound email. This is going to act as though we're a guy called Jeff working for a company called Contoso. Any of you that have worked with Microsoft will know that all our demo environments tend to get called Contoso or some variation of that. So when we're reacting to a new inbound email over time, if we were to release this as a fully operational process, we'd probably set that email address to be sort of accounts@contoso.com, for instance. Whilst we're testing this, we can use our own user email address to bring this in. And when a new email arrives, we're going to apply a couple of conditions and we're going to call up a couple of functions. So we've not tried to capture every step on this recording as we've gone through, but we're going to use a get attachments function that allows us to reach out from Power Automate to M365, grab an email and grab the attachment. And as we release the video, or we'll release the link to this video along with the slides, we've got full kind of instructions and explanations as we work our way through. So when we get an inbound email, we're going to grab the attachment, call up the function in the AI Builder, and we've got a model in that AI Builder that we can open in a brand new tab. And this is for invoice processing for RPA, which is the robotic process automation. This is a form of OCR, or optical character recognition, and what we're looking to do is scan an invoice, and we're going to be capturing the key fields to extract the due date, bill to, balance to, and contact. As with any AI engine, you set the parameters and you train the AI engine over, I'm going to say, a period over a number of invoices, because over time that AI engine starts to recognize the different layout formats that are typical to different suppliers, and it's scanning and looking for words like total, tax, invoice, and account, for instance, so that the engine can learn to automatically extract that data and bring it into our applications. So we can train that document over a period of time, and it will look to recognize, for instance, where do I extract the total, the subtotal, and where do I extract the taxable amount from. So we're looking to free up human resources and the amount of time that we're using. So we've used the predict call to go out to grab an email with an attachment. The conditions that we're going to be looking for when we run through this process: any invoice greater than $2,000 requires approval. So it's $2,000 or greater. Anything less than $2,000, we can automatically push through for approval. When it is greater than $2,000, we're going to push that out to teams, and we can even reject the invoice at that point as well. So if I just scroll down, simple tree process, if yes, if no. This is built on a model that comes with Power Automate. When I showed you quickly on Power Apps, where we had Canvas apps and we had data-driven apps, we've got models to give you a starter for 10. So kind of going back to that question about how do we get started and where do I go from there? In make.powerapps.com, for instance, when you log into the portal, there's a whole raft of popular styles of applications that you can use as a template rather than always starting from scratch. And the same is true in Power Automate. So in these cases where the balance due is less than $2,000, so my calculation, if balance is greater than $2,000, if the answer is no, I'm going to send an approval, which is an approval invoice because the value is less than $2,000. You can see from here we're going straight into email from Power Automate. We've got that kind of link. It's very important to stress this integration piece. M365 and BizApps absolutely wrapped together in this instance with that interoperability, if that's even a word. So if it's less than $2,000, we go through and push it through for approval, and where it's greater, $2,000 or greater, then we need to do something with it. We need to push this out for an approval process. So in this case, we're going to push it out to Teams. You can see the Teams icon up here. So we're just grabbing a process to integrate with Teams. We're going to grab the approval process with a headline of large invoice amount and push that out to say we've got an invoice with a balance of X to the recipient. So we'll use Teams for that approval process. And as we work our way through the conditions, once we've gone through that approval process, what's coming back to us is either yes, I've approved it, or no, I haven't approved it. So if we just scroll down on this process a little bit, what we're going to say is if the answer is no, I didn't approve it, then I'm going to send out an email with a header rejected invoice, which was below 2,000. So we would usually have, or potentially we would have automatically approved something. If there's a reason we pushed it out for approval, then we can still reject it and push that out with a message. And if the answer is yes, I'm going to add a series of options. And in this case, I want to reach out to a connector because what we're going to do now is run a user interface flow on a desktop. This is flagged up as a premium connector, assuming I don't hugely run out of time. I'm going to come back on what represents a standard or a premium connector when we get a chance to quickly look at licensing and some pricing. I think this is actually quite a cool example of trying to bring everything together, because the user interface flow that I want to create is to create a brand new flow. So we'll give this a name on Power Automate RPA demo. And what we're going to do is drive into a series of sort of data capture events. So if we're going to approve this invoice, get the thing paid off, and update some data into our legacy finance system, I definitely need to capture the date. There's 4 fields, so I'll run through this as quickly as I can. I need to capture the date, I need to capture the account that we are working on and give that a quick description, along with the contact. So we're just going to use our own email address just to get this through a testing process, and I'm going to include the amount of the invoice. So we're really interested just in capturing format at this point. So setting the expectation about what kind of data we're going to capture, quite an important message here, because the whole drive about this low code, no code and the user interface, I don't like the word democratization, but we'll go with it. It's an interface which is intended to be simple. It's fairly intuitive. You've not got a huge amount of scope to go wrong, frankly, because the process we're going to run through is pretty straightforward. This is one of the things that I'm really interested in to bring in, and one of the key reasons I chose this as an example. Reaching out and thinking about manual processes. We talked a lot yesterday about application program interfaces, the connectors. I'm still going to talk about that a little bit later on today, but connectors and how we reach out and integrate with other systems. If you're working with systems, maybe legacy systems that don't have an API, how can we help you out on this? In this case, we're actually going to record the app. Screen scraper is the word that comes to mind for me. So we're actually going to record a whole application here. So if I minimize that window, we're going to use a bit of AI, a bit of data capture. So if I open this, this is my legacy application for Contoso invoicing. It's written in Java. It's not the prettiest thing. As we start to, I guess, embark on this journey around digital transformation, often we can't just do everything in one go. We've got to work on small bite-sized pieces, what adds value, what frees up resource, and where do we save money, make money, and get steps along that process, along that journey. In this case, the manual process of updating invoices in Java would be to go into the Java application, flag up the invoices, file new, and then we key some data in, matching the elements that I think I've already captured. So I'm going to do date, account, contact, and amount. Because I'm using a record mechanism to get a screen scraper, I'm going to define that my input on this stage will match against the date field that I just predefined in my workflow. And then when I go to the account, I'm going to match it against the field again. You get the picture. So I'm recording the steps, matching where the data is input on my legacy system and starting to match it against my workflow. So I can key in the amount. And the last step, I don't record against any data capture because this is a process flow. That invoice will move from uninvoiced to invoiced. And once I've done that, pardon me, file and save, and then file and exit is the process that I would have gone through on my legacy system. So I can now say to my recording application, you know what, I'm done. That's cool. That's what I would have done on my legacy system. So we can actually build this into a script. So you can see where I did a left click. As I run through, this has captured all of the clicks, all of the steps that I would have done. And if I expand one of those steps, you'll see that not only is it captured technically exactly what I did, also we get a screenshot of everything that happened in the background. So when we're engaging with an opportunity about migrating from a legacy system, improving a legacy system, we don't have to be working on Dynamics already to get the benefit of Power Platform, I guess, is one of the key messages that I'm trying to get across here. So we've got some scripting, we've got some screen capture. When I get the data, I haven't defined any of the outputs that I'm going to go through yet. So in order to test this and go through some scripting, I'm not going to worry too much about sort of explaining all the steps as I go through, because what we're effectively saying is let's throw some data into that script, because what we can do now is by putting in some dummy data without scanning an invoice, without triggering anything, we can test our processes as we go along. So if I test that from Power Automate and just minimize that back to my desktop application, where I've captured the scripting, it plays through that automatic process to say, this is what my robotic process will do once I've captured some data and I've triggered it. So if we can prove to ourselves in bite-sized chunks that we're actually building a logical, robust process flow, now what we can do is start to think about when we run this. Over time, my run mode will probably move from attended to unattended when it goes into production. I don't need to sit here and trigger this. And I'm just going to match, we need to kick off, I think, some of the variables and just match to say the date, the fields that we're going to push into that RPA process are going to match those dates that we're going to capture and scan and bring in from our OCR capture, to give me those 4 key fields that we've already defined as our targets for capturing from that inbound scan. Once we've got them from the scan and we've got the approval either manually or automatically, we're going to push these out to robotically update that legacy system. So I'll just jump back in. We can enable this Win automation on preview, and I think I need to go in and just enable some of the variable fields in here. So the process that we went through is looking at which of the legacy systems we're going to update for invoicing. The other thing that was on that invoice was a list of inventory items with their quantities and with their costs. I've not gone all the way through the process because in a short space of time, we simply can't do that. I'm also looking to capture what those items are and what the quantities are so that we can update this equally slightly ugly legacy inventory management system. So anything that you can capture off that document, we can capture, we can bring it in to specific fields. I'm just going to use this Win automation tool to drive that one through. I'll rattle through this as quickly as I can just to get through to the end of this section of the demo. So frankly, this is using Win automation and just minimizing the wait time. Apologies, this isn't exactly a great part of the demo, but necessary just to get through and enable these processes, because what we're just going to do is push this out to do an automatic update and save an inventory management process at the same time as we're doing some invoicing and minimizing the wait time. I only want 1 second between all of these. I promise this will get back to, I hope, being quite interesting. What I'm trying to show you fairly quickly is that if you've got access to processes, if you've got a mechanism to control those processes or record what you would do to control them, then you've got a fair chance of bringing those into an automated process for Power Automate. So we can close that down if I can manage to hit the screen at the right place. and jump back into our process flow. So apologies, that wasn't very thrilling going through that little piece. What I do want to be able to show you now is that we can update and test and release our Power Automate process just to initialize some of these variables and push them through, ideally dropping into the conditions. So we can see from the conditions, we're going to jump through, and I'm just going to apply some of these variables and updates so that we can show this. Sorry, I'm just waiting for this screen to catch up with me. Same as we saw on, I don't know actually if I explained it or you noticed on Power Apps, we get builds and we get tests all the way through a process. To perform the test of this process, we need a trigger action. Remember, we're reacting to an inbound invoice. So to run this one through, I'm just going to create a new inbound email. We specified we'll do this to Jeff Hayes' email address. And we're searching for anything that's got the word invoice anywhere in the header and has got an attachment as part of our process. So by sending an invoice in, you can see just flashing up there, we now get a, I'm saying flashing up there as my screen tries to go full screen. That's frustrating. Popping up in Teams, because we had a large invoice amount, we now get an approval process routed through to our user. We can approve that and then submit. I'm not going to go through and put comments in. We'll submit this from Teams back into my Power Automate process. And what happens in the background is that we kick off the RPA, the robotic process automation, that we've used the screen scraper to capture the processes. We've captured the data using OCR scanning. We've pushed it into the invoicing application. We're now driving into that inventory management application. And it's pretty much like watching somebody type something in. Promise, there's no hands. Because we've captured each of the stages and the steps as we go through the application. We've captured the data to go into it, pushed it through and automated a process. So a fairly busy and I think rapid gallop through in about 20-25 minutes of a process quickly built in Power Automate, integrated with optical character recognition, using artificial intelligence. The key thing that I guess I really want to get across from that is that, sorry, let me get my presentation back up. I guess one of the key things that I really want to get across from that was the integrated nature, that integrated piece in terms of Power Platform and M365, along with the tools and the opportunity to reach out and integrate with, in some format, third-party applications. The next 15 minutes, I do want to just whiz through a few of the things that came out on Microsoft Ignite that was last week. Ignite is the big launch session at the start of the year because there's some quite exciting updates that came through in terms of digital transformation, using the example that I just galloped through there. And I hope it wasn't too fast for everybody to either keep up with, and I hope I managed to maintain some interest as we went through. In terms of challenges for digital transformation, thinking about these complex processes, paper processes, often we're restricted in terms of time and resource along with budget for how can we take something and transform it into something that adds more value. When we're addressing these options and these challenges, certainly when we're dealing with Power Platform, with Dynamics and with M365, off-the-shelf SaaS applications could entirely fit the bill, or they could fit the bill somewhat. Where there's a gap between the commercial off-the-shelf application and a customer's process requirements, We can encourage somebody to change their processes to suit the application, and that's great in the long term. It drives down the cost of maintenance and the cost of the application over its lifespan. Not always easy to say to somebody, hey, change your business to suit the way our application works. Business process reengineering can be a great catalyst when we bring new systems in. Closing that gap, custom development has been the traditional way of doing this. Power Platform wants to attack that kind of white space analysis. Anywhere there's a gap in terms of a process and a requirement, and we don't want to pay huge amounts of money, because what we're driving towards is this productive connection. The phrase yesterday was data is the new oil. Absolutely it is. Connecting data and processes to give us the right results is where we want to go. And a key call out of this is that Azure, M365 and Biz Apps are absolutely not disparate. We're not talking about different silos or different kind of islands. If I give you the example, certainly the way that we work at Ingram, especially from my experience in the UK, Biz Apps is M365 and Dynamics and Power Platform. We all absolutely work as part of the same team, and I guess that's a reasonable message to our partners and to their end customers. When you're working with Ingram, we're all part of this same team looking to achieve the same objective. So you can work on Power Platform as an M365 customer without adopting Dynamics. Of course, I'm biased. I'd rather you adopted Dynamics at the same time. Everything's hosted on Azure, and we've got those skills as a partner of Ingram, as a reseller. The positioning opportunity is really play to your own strengths and understand what your customers need from Power Platform. Not going to spend very much time going through on the presentation. The 4 key elements: act, analyze, assist, and automate. A key message is, hey, let's not walk away from an opportunity, because within this range, and I think that Nelson kind of did this screen to death yesterday, but I just wanted to call out a couple of things that relate to security, because we talked about citizen developers with low code and no code, and moving up towards pro developers. I started my life first 10 years in operations and development, moved into IT management. I think if I was still an IT manager now, I'd look at this kind of slide and I think, crikey, I'm not sure I want 80% of all the apps being written by citizen developers in my organization. I'll be a little bit concerned about the security and the maintenance of this architecture I've worked really hard on. And what do I do with my professional coders at that top end, the 20%, when my citizen developers kind of run out of steam and don't know how to progress anymore? We've got data structures, SharePoint, Dataverse, moving up to Azure SQL, but thinking about where we go and security, with about 400 connectors that work for Power Automate and Power Apps, for instance. That means we can write an in-house application and reach out to 400 different APIs. As that IT manager, I'd be a little bit concerned about that, because I want to protect my security model. Every call from Power Apps effectively becomes an API. Again, I won't dwell on this because Nelson, I think, spent quite a bit of time on this yesterday. So we look at security, logic, and data and storage as we go through. And for the more technical, I'll whiz past this one. We can expand from that low code into the world of Cosmos and data lake storage. So recent example, Dynamics GP migration to Business Central. We were bringing about 12 years of legacy data across. It would have blown the storage capacity in CDS. So for the legacy data, we drop that into a data lake. It's not structured like CDS, it's almost like TXT files, but that enabled the pro developers the opportunity to still reach out and grab that data. It was beyond the wit of the kind of low code humans like me. We'll leave that with the super techies. In terms of the way that we do this, building on our applications, that 350 should be 400, reaching out to those third-party products, building automation on top, and the user experience frankly, is whatever the user needs to see in terms of mobility and the business application. They don't need to see any of this happening in the background. It's like the duck swimming. It just looks graceful on the top and you don't see the feet underneath. In the interest of time, because I talked too much at the start, just want to call out some of the key shouts from Ignite that came out last week, because it's certainly worth, I hope, everybody knowing about around the development. And I'm going to call out some of the security aspects here, because the key areas for Ignite were based on that kind of enterprise trust, AI rolling out right across Power Platform, remote work with Teams integration, which is kind of why I wanted to show that example with Power Automate, and these kind of fusion teams. One of the messages yesterday was around Center of Excellence and governance. I don't want people coming away from these sessions from yesterday and today thinking, crikey, just in order to adopt Power Platform, I've got to go down this whole route of building the practice, having a Center of Excellence, and being a super techie. What I tried to show you at the start with that Power App development, you absolutely don't need to be a techie to start building apps and getting some benefit. For security purposes, you probably don't want every user in your organization running amok and generating applications all over the place. Even if that is the case, within admin on Power Platform, as you can see at the top, we've got enough governance, visibility, and control, both at tenant level and then down to environment level, to give us monitoring and control over what apps are running. In this case, it's on Power Apps, what apps are running, what users are doing, what these applications are, how long they're running for, and frankly, how much resource they're consuming. I did mention about security and how I would be a little bit worried about all my users calling these APIs. This kind of came out from Ignite last week. This is granularity around APIs, because APIs can open us up to the outside world. I've got 3 that are blocked off. Always a favorite example: Dropbox, Facebook, and Twitter. We use Twitter as an example. Often our marketing department wants to reach out to Twitter to get some kind of feedback. Are we getting good mentions? Are we getting bad mentions? If we reach out, what I don't want to do is somebody accidentally tweeting from, say, a demo environment and just broadcasting something that they shouldn't. We've now got the opportunity of drilling down into those connectors, simple radio buttons. I'm not going to allow outbound. I'll allow inbound to get followers, but I don't want anybody pushing data out to the broader world. And then when I think about Power Automate, so using the kind of example that I generated as we went through that experience of screen scraping and what have you, I can equally manage, as I did with Power Apps, what's happening in Power Automate, what's running daily, weekly, monthly, what kind of resource is it consuming, and how many times is that running. For the developers, I do love the way Microsoft do this. I can say this, having spent 10 years in a development world. Every time we put a slide together that's about developers, the background goes dark, like we all live in dark rooms when we're writing code. There isn't a chasm that we fall off or have to cross, really, between the low-code development and the pro code. So if we developed a working example and a model and we put some effort into generating this using Power Platform, but we want to extend, enhance, configure, and modify using our professional coders, then we can do that using mostly Visual Studio. That's certainly the tool of choice. And something I do want to call out is the enhancement that again was announced at Ignite last week. I showed you some of the text. The reason I went into the Power App development at the start of this presentation was to show you some of the text that's written using something called PowerFX. It's a language, it's native to Power Apps. PowerFX gives us that kind of overlap from no code to pro code. What was announced at Ignite is that same code standard is being driven across everything in Power Platform. Certainly talking with one of our elite solution providers in Power Platform this week, they see that really as a game changer, because it gives them scope for the same universal language all the way through Power Platform. And if you look at the screen, this is straight out of docs.microsoft.com, which is why I put the link in, from a Power Apps blog, which is why I put the link at the bottom. PowerFX looks and feels like Excel, and indeed the cells that are marked in green, it's the same function with the same name, and the syntax is almost exactly the same. There will be some slight variance when we use this in Power Apps, but the message I want to get across from this is to reiterate, if you're pretty cool at Excel, Power Apps is going to be no great challenge to you. I showed you the syntax earlier on. I just want to show you this just to reiterate it, because where we've filtered on our employees to only get active employees and bring those back as a list, we get those displayed on the screen. And the reason I mentioned Visual Studio a little bit earlier on is that if we want to engage with our pro developers, we've got a mechanism just to flip that into Visual Studio Code. Finally, I guess with a bit of a drum roll, I'm going to whiz through pricing, and I'll try and just do this in 2 or 3 minutes. So a super light touch. I'm not going to do this, obviously, in any great detail. I think it's all well and good for us to say to you, hey, we can do this, get out there, engage with Ingram, with our partners, or try yourself. A couple of key call outs in terms of licensing and where you're going to pay money. Seeded licenses exist for Power Platform applications within other Office and Dynamics applications. A seeded license means that you get access to it without paying for it. So if I call out, for instance, Office 365, if you've got the E5 pack, you've got access to Power BI Pro. That means you can develop your own dashboards, KPIs in Power BI, and you can publish them. We've got access to Power Automate for Office 365, and Project Oakdale is access to the applications from Teams. When you've got a seeded license, the restriction you're going to get on that is that you don't get access to premium connectors. So you can't get those API calls out to third parties, and you're restricted to the data set that you'll be looking at within the environment that you're working in. You're getting great applications for free, but it kind of doesn't give you huge amounts of reach. If you need reach and complexity, then you'll do that by acquiring a premium license. Because I've got this actually on play, I'm not sure quite who's coughing with the mic open, so I'm afraid I can't mute everybody without exiting my presentation. If you need that reach, a premium license will get you out to that reach, and that's where it's going to cost you some money. And I want to call out these slight differences, because when we're sharing across the organization and we don't want everybody to buy individual licenses, we've got the typical software as a service model on a per user per month basis for any of the Power Platform applications. And we've got capacity-based models when we're sharing across the organization. In the interest of time, I'm not going to whiz through pricing against each of the apps in any particular detail. Suffice to say, let me use Power BI as an example. There's a free version, runs on your desktop, you pay nothing for it. You can create your own dashboards, but you can't publish them. Your data refreshes maximum 8 times in 24 hours. For $10 per user per month, you get the Pro model. You can create, you can publish, and you refresh at the same rate. So the more you pay, we've got more refresh rates. In this case, $5,000 per month premium license allows view-only access to unlimited users within my organization. To justify that amount of money, that's pushing out to a huge number of users. I think there was a comment yesterday, in fact, I know there was a comment yesterday in the chat, I think from Vish, talking about Power Automate and licensing, because it can become quite expensive. Again, we've just got to think about the value and the kind of process that you might be enabling or replacing. So in the example I showed you earlier on, I would certainly need a per user per month license. And because I was building in robotic process automation, that process would have cost me $55 per user per month to get those 2 applications together. And if we want to extend that up to a per flow license, that's when it starts to look really expensive. But we've got unlimited users with 15,000 API calls. So we've got some capacity restrained models. I'm not going to try and go through too many of these. We'll release the slide deck. Really simple example, for instance, on Power Apps. On a Power App per app plan, you can do 2 apps on 1 portal. Once you run out of that, you really need to upgrade to a per user plan, and then you've got unlimited development opportunities. Similarly on Power Automate, so a per user plan will have some restrictions against it, but it's only $15 per month. But if I want to bring in RPA, that robotic process, then I need to pay an extra $40 per month to get through that. Nice example, one that we do get asked about, is portals. So developing a portal is free. Access to it becomes chargeable. So for anonymous users, we're just doing page views. Authenticated users, this might be if you push this out for your customers to log into. They can log into a portal, see their orders, their invoices, their inventory status, any promotions, for instance. You pay for their login capability, and for internal employees, we'll need a Power Apps or D365 plan in the background. We can absolutely help you with pricing. First time I looked at this, I thought, crikey, that does look really, really complicated. Honestly, it's just a matrix. Reading across the bottom, what we're doing is just kind of, I hope, simplifying without reading too much documentation, what you get in terms of bang for your buck and what the limitation is. I think, for instance, if you were buying a new car, you'd probably go through and say, I want the electric model, I'll choose the paint color, I'll choose the interior, I'll choose whether I want to upgrade the sound system. Same kind of approach. What do you want your applications to achieve? And we can help you configure the best solution and the best return on your investment, along with add-on pricing. So one that was actually asked about today, actually, adding on customer voice. So this is reaching out sort of to forms capture on what we do with it. £100 a month to extend the standard volume of capture. And just to wrap this up, I promise it, I'm slightly over time, so the last couple of slides. In terms of what we do, this isn't actually an extract from an Ingram presentation. In terms of what we do, this is an extract from one of our elite solution providers that we partnered with for the Power Platform Accelerate program. Kind of going from the message of yesterday where we talked about Center of Excellence and digital transformation, what we do with our elite service providers is offer the opportunity with partnership for advice, technology and solutions, building on business applications, but that could go from a single tactical point solution right through to app in a day, Power Automate in a day, how we develop a center of excellence. The starting point is really where you want to engage as a partner or with one of your customers with an opportunity. The example that I chose earlier on wasn't exactly haphazard. Again, this is a slide that's a case study from one of our elite solution providers. In this case, integrating with a legacy system from Infor. Obviously, we would have preferred if they'd have bought Dynamics. It wasn't within budget, within timescale, within the scope of what we could do. So they wanted to stick with Infor for the time being, but deploy a field service solution. That field service solution, again, rather than buying Dynamics field service, because we'd have had to work quite hard on the integration, it was easier to develop this as a Power App, deploy that on mobile devices, use CDS as the integration piece so that we could exchange data to and from the Infor system using Power Platform to capture data. Strangely enough, on my birthday, no reason that anybody should remember that. I'll just notice it as we go through. So that kind of integration piece, as a case study from one of our elite solution providers, is kind of driving why I wanted to run through the example that I did earlier on. So to finish this off, this is as salesy, I hope, as my messages get in terms of what we do with Ingram, very much about enabling, introducing and removing the risk as we start this journey into Power Platform and development. The partners that we deal with are absolutely world-class service providers. UK, European, globally, we can provide the introductions so that if it's that a point solution, a quick fix, maybe a bigger opportunity, and it's consultancy guidance and roadmap on where we go in order to achieve that really robust platform and the roadmap for success. Some of the questions that came through from yesterday and some of the follow-ups were kind of, Ed, where do we start? How do we go on with this? How would you advocate we get stuck into Power Platform, for want of a better phrase? What I would say is,
okay, great.
Explore it, create a trial,
ping,
jump in for education, challenge what you're doing, and really engage. I mean, engage as partners with customers, with Ingram, with our elite solution providers, and spin up that kind of trial environment. And with that, I realize I am at least 5 minutes over. So, Matt, I don't know if you want to regain the control. If there were questions coming through, sorry, I was using 2 screens, so I couldn't pick up on any questions as they came through.
No, it's absolutely fine. That was brilliant, Ed. I think what we'll do, we'll open up for questions, or if you want to have a look at the chat and just have a look at some of the questions that came in and then answer those. And then what we'll do is look to take a break. Again, maybe 10-15 minute break, something like that, refresh, and then come back for Craig's session. So if you want to have a read of those questions, we'll start there. But if anyone has got a question, feel free to come off mute as well.
Right.
So Maria, I think you came in with the first question. Can we build an app by... well, if that was Maria speaking, that was a very deep voice. Can we build an app by merging these categories you just told? Not sure I fully understand that, Maria, probably because it was probably what I was saying at the time. When you're talking about merging the categories, I guess that's when we went into Power Apps. And the categories, we sort of had data-driven, model apps and canvas apps. So typically a model-driven app has already got that framework, it's got the building blocks, and it might be based on the kind of framework or an example that we use as a starter. A canvas app is a little bit for rather more experienced coders, people that have used Power Apps, want to start from that blank piece of paper. All of the elements are like building blocks. It's like using Lego, frankly. So we've got those building blocks that we can step up on each other. So if that doesn't answer your question, Maria, drop another question in, drop me an email, and I will certainly try and address that properly for you. Next question. How does the flow running in the cloud invoke the Java app on the desktop? I hope I answered that. We were using that screen scraping technology. So that Java app was running on the desktop. So we just linked the Power Automate process into that Windows recording mechanism. So obviously I tried to get through that in like 20 or 25 minutes. There's plenty of detail in the background, but linking that process, effectively anything that you can trigger, any process, anything you can get to, if you can get to it and integrate that with your process, that was how we were driving that Java app. Matthew, so it's Matthew, is that Newbrough? Who can we reach out to at Ingram? Matt? Me? Please give us a shout, whether that's on Teams or whether that's on email. Because if you're looking to build a Power App, Power Automate solution for a client, and you want us to hold our hand, brilliant. I won't get terribly salesy. The Power Platform Accelerate program that we put together, as we did with the Dynamics Accelerate program, is designed so that if you've got zero experience or a little experience, we can introduce you to our elite solution providers. They are absolutely the best in the world. We've picked them based on geography, expertise, and covering all of the ranges of Dynamics applications, as well as the more general or solution providers who are agnostic of platform, I should say. If we can help to understand the challenge that you've got. We can align you with the right elite solution provider in the right geography. And that's exactly the hold your hand and get started process that we're looking to do, Matthew. Hi, Matthew, whereabouts are you always? Sorry, Matt, you were answering the question before I read it that far.
It's all right. Don't worry. While you've been talking away, I've already introduced him into Scott, based on him being US based, and I'm adding him into the Teams channel as well because all our elite service providers are in there. So there's lots of chance to partner up and learn from some of the best. So.
And that last question, MVM just answered that. Thanks. Cool. Hey, 1 point I'll finally, as I try and remember it, 2 points actually, that I didn't put onto the presentation. Just one of the things about licensing. If you have a Power Automate flow, but it's embedded within a Power App, you pay for the Power App license, but you don't need to pay for the Power Automate license. So if it's fully embedded within the app, again, I don't want everyone going away from this kind of session thinking, wow, I've got to pay $10 for the Power Automate or $15 for the Power Automate, another 40 for the robotic process, and then another 10 for this and another 10 for that. We can really help you optimize that kind of flow, terrible choice of word, that kind of process and that kind of investment. The other thing that was mentioned at Ignite last week is Power Automate is being released in Windows 10, no charge. As a great way to understand what you can do with Power Automate, this is going to be there. It's in the operating environment. It's going to be on your in your Windows 10 release. My own laptop hasn't updated to it yet. I haven't checked it today. As a great way to learn and to get into that, released on Windows 10. So I'm at least 10 minutes overdue. If there are no more questions, I hope that doesn't mean that everyone's dropped off.
We'll be handing over to Craig shortly. So yeah, thank you very much, Ed. That was a brilliant session. Really great to get a bit more hands-on. So yeah, really interesting. And yeah, so for everyone on the call now, we will be handing over to Craig Preskus from Microsoft, who's going to be doing even getting more hands-on for the next couple of hours or so. What I'm going to say is, if we take a break now and maybe say, I don't want to be awkward, but I don't want to, I think 20 minutes might be a bit too long, but give you time to go get a coffee, maybe have some food. If we say by about, it's about 25 minutes past to half past, if we say, if everyone's back for the call, and we'll just take a nice break now. But if anyone does have any questions, feel free to speak up during the break or drop them in the chat. If any questions come to mind, and we can do what we did yesterday before we start the next session, just kind of recap and answer any questions of the previous session. So we'll take a break now. Thank you again, Ed. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. Might be worth if you can just do a show of hands, just if you want to do the raise your hand just to show that you're back. So I know I said between 25 past and half past, so I know that Craig's got some amazing content, so I don't want anyone to miss it. How you doing, Craig? Anyway, you okay?
I feel good. Do I sound good?
You sound good.
Do I look good?
Look amazing, as always.
We'll see if latency causes me to turn off video, but I'll play along since you all have been keeping the video going.
No problem. I will. I'm going to come off video. I'm going to go on mute. It looks like people are back. So yeah, I'll hand over to you. Enjoy.
Awesome, great. Thanks, Matthew, and welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I'm calling. You can see the snowy background here in Colorado. I want to say thank you to all of you for all of your interest and your efforts in the last day and then again a half this morning or today to invest and learn about Dynamics. And I also want to say thank you, a big shout out and a thank you, and to express my gratitude for the Ingram team, Matthew and Ed and all of the speakers. It's been fantastic. I've been working with them for quite a while, and I love to see the maturation and the evolution of their partner channel and investing in Dynamics, or also known as business applications, BizApp. So again, my name is Craig Kreskis. I have been at Microsoft. I may have to go over and above or trump what Nelson had in his background of 12 years. I've been here for almost 21 in about 3 weeks. So my career started when Microsoft started acquiring ERP applications around the globe. So I came with an ERP background, and then as you know, the history of it, those products became, evolved into what we have in terms of our cloud solutions. And we had a CRM product. So we had 4 ERP on-premise and a CRM application, and it's amazing. And to see the growth and to see what you as partners have to be able to sell and build in your practice. So today's session, and why Matthew and the Ingram team asked me to present, was born out of an idea that I had. And I think you heard yesterday, I know Nelson mentioned it, and I heard Ed mention it this morning. There's a lot of training opportunities for you as a partner. And one, for example, is App in a Day, right? You can go and participate as an attendee, or I think the question was posed, hey, can we host these for our customers? Yeah, absolutely, and that's great. For me, I've sat through those classes, I've delivered and facilitated. I know that spending 8 hours just to learn an application may not be in the best interest of everybody, yourselves, your customers. And so what I have here is I'm taking everything you've learned with the last day and a half. What is Power Apps? You've seen demos, you've seen examples, what's Power BI? What I did is I took a subset of all of those and built it in a way that you can basically get hands-on and follow along with me in this workshop, if that makes sense. So you guys had homework. I know everybody loves the H word. And I will show you the steps if you haven't done it yet. But again, I'd love for everybody on this call, you've seen examples, right? Is to get hands-on, roll up the sleeves, and you will follow along with me. I don't know that this is going to be probably more than I've ever hosted in terms of hands-on workshops. Back when we were doing these live in person, probably about 30 to 40 partners, and I was able to run around the room and troubleshoot. But you've got experts on the Q&A panel. So if you've got questions, if you're stuck, Matthew, Ed, stop me if there's something major. But every single screen that we'll go through is exactly how you can do if you're using these environments today. And so you're familiar with the CDX. So what you need to do in order to build an environment, and I'll go through these steps individually, but these are for partners, not for customers. but you could host something very similar as the partner can sign up for trial instances on their own. But you're going to go into CDX, and I'll click on this in a moment here. You're going to create a customer engagement environment. You'll copy the admin user and password. And then from an in-private browser, I want you to go to trials.dynamics.com. And that's the steps that you'll need to follow along in the workshop. Okay, and I'll get that to you in a moment. And so, for my opening, and I've been hosting this event for the last couple of weeks with some other partnerships. And if you're seeing dynamics, for the first time, or if the word dynamics or business applications elicits as much fear as driving a rental car in Reykjavik without a GPS, like I felt a couple of years ago, don't worry. I understand. And if you've been interested in dynamics and learning more, and this is like the perfect opportunity, but maybe this sign captured your feelings in terms of directions, and you didn't know where to go, don't worry. I know that there's been a lot thrown at you the last day and a half. In my 20 years, I've worked with so many partners that are ERP and CRM partners, and they're excited. They see the future, and the current part of their business is just growing. And so what I do at Microsoft, I help partners find the smooth road when it comes to building a dynamics practice. How do you avoid the pitfalls, the potholes? How do you get started and have a great experience across all aspects of your business? And what I mean by that are people on this call, maybe you're a business owner and you've been asked by the Ingram team to participate just to kind of see what that opportunity is about. Maybe you're in sales or pre-sales or technical or marketing. There's something here for everybody in the next 2 hours or however long you guys want me to present. My last slide, and then we'll get in the labs. Our focus, and the team has asked us to kind of, is to kind of focus on this bottom part in the Power Platform. But I wanted to let you know, and again, in my opening, you heard me say that we started with 4 ERP, accounting, supply chain, financial management applications, and 1 CRM product that we grew from the ground up. If you look at the Dynamics 365 landing page today, you can see the breadth of the apps, the first-party apps that we're building. And so I say this to you as a partner who's just getting into this. Take a look and understand that there might be other apps that you say, wow, I didn't know Microsoft did a fraud protection. I didn't know Microsoft offered HR solution, and maybe that complements, and I could package up what we're building in Power Apps with maybe a back-end CRM application in sales, along with human resources. So again, I show this slide not to intimidate you, to say, hey, wow, there's a lot here. There is. The portfolio continues to grow, but more so to say, wow, what does Microsoft have for me as I'm getting into dynamics, right? You don't have to be, as you're hearing throughout these sessions, an accountant or finance manager or CFO or former CFO to start learning how to build a dynamics practice. You can get into it by some of these kind of easier entry points into dynamics. So I hope that helps. What I'm going to do next is just make sure everybody understands how to get trial instances of the applications that we've been looking at and learning, and then you're going to get hands-on. So again, I can't see the entire portfolio of everyone on, but I think there are about 89 of you. I know that we sent out a recording as well as a PDF. Hopefully you were able to build a trial. If not, I'll step you through and you could do this right now. So there are 3 options that you can do to spin up or to create a trial of the Power Platform. I prefer option number 1, and I'll show you how to do option 2 and number 3, but you can see the first 2 are based on that customer digital experience platform, CDX. You can also sign up with your at-work email address. So I'll start with option 3 first, because it's not what I want you to do today. However, I also have a list of pros and cons, things that you should be aware of when you're creating a Dynamics 365 trial account. Now you can go in and sign up on trials.dynamics.com for any of those apps that are listed on the landing page. And the benefits that is your Office 365 doesn't expire. The login experience is simple and easy because you basically just type in, businesscentral.dynamics.com or make.powerapps.com. The cons, the challenges that'll have mostly for demonstration purposes, you may not have access to all the applications that you want to highlight. Maybe your organization didn't allow you to use Power Automate and some of the things that Ed just showed, or set up and create Power BI instances. The other challenge, for example, we have at Microsoft, when I go and sign up with my @Microsoft account, for example, Business Central, there are probably about 700 or 800 people in my Business Central trial tenant. So that doesn't really work for me when I'm getting ready to personalize and build demo environments. If you're going to do anything around workflow scenarios, again, it has the single user. You don't have the logins for all the other users that are in that tenant. However, you might say, Craig, hey, we still want to get started. If you want to get, for example, Business Central trial running, all you need to do is go to trials.dynamics.com, choose your app. This page may have been updated since I've recorded it or grabbed it from the screenshot, but again, you could have a 30-day trial of sales, a 30-day trial of customer service, have that integrated into your Office 365 or M365 account. And then once you choose the app you're wanting to create, you'll see here down below, you sign in with your work email address, and then you're off and running. So again, that's fine. What I want everyone to do here, if you haven't already done so, is follow along with these next steps. So we use cdx.transform.microsoft.com almost exclusively for our workshops and the labs that I'm going to present to you today. The advantages on the left are very clear. You get a free Office 365 account. That's a 90-day trial. You've got access to all of the cloud apps that we are publishing within Microsoft in our cloud. I'm going to have you create customer engagement. You can do up to 6 tenants, and there's 25 predefined users. That comes in handy for me when I'm doing any kind of presentations that require me to log in and out of different personas. And it's very simple and easy to create. On the right side, just a couple of things you need to be mindful of. Because you are using these users that you've created, you need to make sure that when you log into the browser, you're either incognito or in private. And then again, Office 365 expires in 90 days. So that's just kind of an idea here of how to get started. So really simple steps. Step number 1, we're going to go ahead and create a customer engagement and Office 365 demo account. I'm going to take those credentials. You'll create a Business Central trial account, and then I'll have you log into Business Central. And you're probably saying, Craig, what does this have to do with Power Apps? We're going to use the first-party apps, for example, like Business Central, to build a very basic Canvas-driven app. All right, so everyone should be able to access this page. Right, this is a partner-only page. This is not for customers. This is not where you would host an event for customers. That they do need to have your partner login, right? You need to have your partner login. You select on environments, and then create a tenant. Now, the 2 things you need to do by default, you'll have the quick tenant and 90 days. Scroll down. And you can see how many tenants that you're using here on the right side. And this is where I said you have option 1 and option 2. Ideally, I would prefer all of you be using option number 1, and that's this customer engagement, because it's how I'm going to have the labs are designed, number 1. Number 2, you can see my footnote down below that this Business Central tenant does not include Dynamics 365 sales. It does include Power Platform. So again, if we didn't want, or you wanted to create your own labs and you wanted just to build it off of, say, Business Central, Power Platform does come within this tenant down below. Next, I want you to go and once you create that tenant, you'll see here, I'll copy your admin user and then the admin password. Throw that onto Notepad, OneNote, Word doc, anything you want to do that you can go back to it. You're going to use it a few times when you're creating your trial tenants. Then from an in private or incognito browser, right? You see here I'm in private. Type in trials.dynamics.com. And again, you must use in private. It just separates your credentials, the domain with which your local machine is. So it allows me to do demonstrations using these credentials and not conflict with my App Microsoft account. Then select Business Central. Put in that admin, just do paste in the work email. Select next. Sign in. Enter in the password. Just follow the on-screen prompts. Select next. Get started. And you've got your Business Central tenant up and running. Okay. I'm going to pause for just a moment, Matthew or Edwin. Just let me know if that. How many of us on the call? Maybe you guys can put in the Q&A window. How many of you just want to see kind of this hands-on experience without typing, or how many of you are going to be doing this with live software on a second monitor? So if you could let me know who is doing that, and then I can kind of judge the pace with which I should continue. How are we doing here? Actually, I could pop out real quick here. So again, maybe if you guys could just use the Q&A monitor here, type in the text. How many of you are going to be following along? And how many you're going to watch along? Thank you. Okay. Looks like some folks are just going to use your own tenant. You want to do this later. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate you checking in on that. All right, that's fine. Again, we have content here. I don't know what that means, Mike. Sean's going to watch. Great. Follow now, Michael. Great. Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll just kind of go through this a little bit. Again, this is content that I'm gladly happy. I will gladly. Oh, cool, Danny. Good. So we've got some folks doing both. Some are watching. Some are doing it live. Excellent. Just let me know, for those of you who are doing it live, just let me know about the pace. And if you get stuck, just let me know. And I've got the monitor up here. I can see the chat. Listen, you guys have heard the speech, the pitch, doing it as we go. Awesome, Andrew, right? I'm going to keep it real simple, and I'm going to break down the Power Platform without all the details, the connectors, and all the other things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on just how do we build this. So I'm going to start with Power Apps. You guys have these slides, right? You can go through and understand what it is, in terms of challenges. You guys have all the slides, I think, to support it. So what I'm going to do is I want you to follow along. So the roadmap I have for Power Apps is, first, we're going to create a Canvas app, right? Ed showed you some great examples, kind of building some things that he was using, connecting to data sources, say bringing it in from Excel. Then I'm not sure if earlier today, if you guys if you saw anything around a model app. So I want you just to compare and contrast so that as you are having conversations with customers, you're able to say, you know what, that might be a better suit for model-driven app or Canvas app. A lot of that just comes from experience as you go along. And then Ed mentioned it earlier today about this kind of blending of Power Apps and Teams. We formerly called a project called Project Oakdale, and I have an example that I just re-recorded this yesterday for us today to show you how we're blending the world of productivity tools, right? Things like Word and Excel and PowerPoint and Teams into the structured, rigid world of business process or business applications. And so I'll show you how we'll bridge that into a Teams app. And then I just have a couple of slides if you didn't already get inundated with, where should you go next? So the first thing I'm going to do is build a Canvas app. And to begin, you're going to do this in your in-private incognito browser. Brian, you'll need to talk to maybe the folks in Ingram to help you along. You'll need to be set up as a partner on the administrative side to access cdx.transform.microsoft.com. It does require a partner program, But again, maybe there's something that the Ingram folks have in terms of, no, I get it, your employer's a partner, but we'll talk with the Ingram folks and see how we can troubleshoot and get you set up. So to begin with, make.powerapps.com is where you'd go. And you saw Ed, right, have this kind of landing page here. And to begin with, you need to have a connection to your data source. So you saw Ed grab that from Excel. You could do it from SharePoint, Excel, like here's where you start from the data. But what I want you to do is first on the Canvas app, I want to have you connect to our first party app, the financial management application, and that is Business Central. So on the left-hand side, and you heard this throughout the sessions, right? There are pre-built connectors, right? People are publishing those connectors for you. So to begin, I'll go ahead and create a connection. And I always encourage all of you, as you're kind of building this out and sort of playing around or exploring, take a look at the pre-built connectors with Dropbox here, 365 Training or OneDrive, Salesforce. Right, some of them are going to require your credentials to make that connection. Up on the right side, we'll go ahead and select or search for Business Central. And when you do this for Business Central, you'll have two options. Focus on the one that's not on-premise, and that's going to be your Business Central, the online edition. You'll create that connection, and then once that's done, right, we'll go ahead and create an app. So I've got the connection first. Now I'll go ahead and create the app. So you start up here at the top left, logical navigation, select either Canvas, Model, or Portal. And I'll focus on just Canvas and Model today. Portal is basically taking and creating an app and basically allowing, think of it more like a vendor management or customers where they can come in and look up their accounts. So you can build an app and have it rendered on a portal. We'll go ahead and click on Canvas. So now it says I'm getting ready to create that app. You can select your connection, and so I'm going to scroll to the right because I'm not going to use Common Data Service or Dataverse, SharePoint, OneDrive, but I want to scroll to the right to see any of the list of the connections that I've already made. In this case here, we made it for Business Central. So I choose Business Central, and now it's going to select, which company. So when you created that trial account for Business Central, there are two companies. There is a sample company called Kronos USA, which has all the sample data that you need to do demonstrations. And then there's also my company, which is a blank shell company, which allows prospects to really dig in and determine if Business Central is a fit for them. They can load data. It's a blank company with no data. So choose Kronos USA. And then when you do that, you'll search for the tables that you're looking to create your app in. And so that is customers, in this case here, and connect. And now for us, as I was developing this, I think of just a very simplistic means of navigating Power Apps. Right? And you heard Ed say before, right? A Canvas app is a blank canvas. You as the creator, the customers, or the citizen developers, as Nelson referenced yesterday, they have this wide open canvas that they could start to then drag and drop, put controls on. Now I used the connector out of the box, and so it gave me, using those customers, kind of a starting point. And I could see the app in its action. And again, I know Ed was navigating here, so a little bit of repeat for some of you. Here's the browse screen. And then you'll notice the details screen and then your edit screen. So when I go ahead and play this app or hit F5, right, think of this as I'm a sales rep or somebody who's not always inside the office in traditional business times, and I'm on my mobile phone or I'm on my tablet, right? And I'm navigating to where I just need a basic list of customers with real-time data. In this case, I could see, the 5 customers that we have and their cities. Now, if I mentioned to you earlier the detailed screen, all right, that's the second screen in that navigation list in Tree View. And then the third screen that is comprised or built into this app is the edit screen. And just like Ed did, right, I can go in here, edit. When I hit save, that will send, right, to bidirectional will send data back into my data connection into Business Central in this case. I'll close, I'll hit back, and then I can escape and I'm out of the app. Now, again, Ed did a great job of kind of outlining kind of some of the highlights. I'll just, in terms of repeat nature here, I always have the expectation that my audiences don't have any experience. And so for those of you who are looking more for the technical underpinnings, there's plenty more for you here. Notice when I clicked on that icon, you'll notice in this drop down, like I'm defining that when I select that plus sign, the insert, on select over in the right side, I have the formula appropriately. So it says in this, when I click on the plus sign, open the edit form 1 and navigate to that edit screen 1, which is basically here, this edit screen, and have it be blank. Okay. You can further, again, play around and show customers the breadth and the power of Power Apps and the simplicity of it. I mean, I think you've heard that throughout the 2 days. For example, right, I think Ed mentioned this before around how the productivity and the use of, say, Word. So I can take advantage of the pre-built themes to build apps that are more theme aware and aligned with our customer or company's theme. You know, I could put logos in here. You could double click and I could rename this to be called, instead of customers, call it clients, right? So again, there's plenty you can do here. And again, an app in a day, it walks through a full-blown, I think, you know, the speakers yesterday said it's more than 8 hours. I just wanted to give you kind of a sense of what it feels like and kind of a repeat session. But then also on the left, notice here on the insert, you've got options such as insert media. So it's more than just a cute drag and drop, putting controls and having lists, but you can insert images. You can use the camera. You know, I'm thinking through on a financial management or warehouse solution where maybe you have a barcode scanner. So someone's walking around kind of the shelves and looking at items in inventory. And if we're low, maybe I use my barcode scanner, which then creates, say, a workflow that sends notification to the procurement team. Right, so there's much more, right? We can use the audio or the microphone. And then if I collapse the media, again, much more than just this cute list of customers, but to be able to import and embed mixed reality. So again, Canvas app, usually I'll use somewhat of a dated term in our tech world of technology. It's what you see is what you get. But truly, you can start to drag and drop and feel comfortable that you can play around and start to build your first app. You'll do a file save as, I kind of skipped that for you here, but and then once you do your second save, you'll have the option to publish that app. And so here you see the customer app is listed here. And then I always kind of point out, you know, if I'm building out, say, intellectual property or IP, let's say you're building apps on a particular vertical or industry, you can export this package and then bring it import back into other environments. You'd create what's called a solution, and then you would bring that into your environment. So just, I wanted to, again, basic understanding of some of the aspects of a Canvas-driven app. I'm looking at here, and again, you guys are welcome. I'm back and forth. I can see the screen. If you guys have any questions on that, if not, I'll move into a model-driven app. So with a model-driven app, we use, go to create no environments, contact. So Danny, go to the follow error when trying to create the environment, contact your administrator. So what I would say, Danny, is there is, can you look at the top right corner? There should be a help, and either click on that, and there's either an online form, or if you scroll down below that page, there is an email address that you could send a note to and say, I need help creating a new tenant. But no, it takes no more than a moment or two to create a new tenant. You can only create one tenant per day, and then you should be able to create up to 6 as a partner. Now, again, Danny, just one other thing to point out, you do need to make sure that you're set up in your organization as a certified employee. And so sometimes when I would do these in-person events, we had to make sure that you guys had those credentials set up. So talk to somebody who manages the MPN and then see if they can help. If not, use the help on the CDX platform. Okay. All right, so we're going to get into the model-driven app. And again, the sessions that I was part of so far in your 2 days, I don't recall seeing much in terms of on display. So the first thing I need to do for a model-driven app, because model-driven app uses the connection to Dataverse, which was formerly CDX, the Common Data Service. And so I need to have an environment for that. So if you remember with the Canvas app, I use Business Central as the connection. So here, what you'll need to do, and since we're recording, I'll just type this in here. You'll go into your admin.powerplatform, spell that out, .com. And this is where you would manage all of your environments. And so from here, if you follow the workshop step by step, you'll select on new and you'll create a new environment. Now you'll see here on the right side, I named mine with CRM 043802 with a -dev. So the same as my demo environment. Make sure you choose trial from the dropdown, not production. And then the important thing is you want to make sure you slide this rule over that says, yes, create a database for this environment. So click on next. And then on the right side, again, you'll get prompted they should auto-populate your URL. And then the other thing I would encourage all of you, it's a great way to provide examples to customers and to you, is to deploy those sample apps and data. So I'll click on save. This takes maybe a moment, maybe a minute or two, and then you'll see here, even as it's getting prepared, that it can be used once it's active. So you'll find here that my environment -dev, you can see the state, it says preparing instance. You can hit refresh, and then you should be, once that says active or ready, you'll know that you're ready to get involved or get started. Okay. All right, so now that I've got my environment up and running, one of the big catches, and make sure that you remember, when you're creating apps, it is by environment. And so you need to make sure before you start just to create the model-driven app, that you're in the environment that you created. So what again, just make sure I've gone through the app in a day. I can't tell you the first, second, or third lab. And then I realized I had forgotten to change it from the default into the new environment. And so it's frustrating. So again, always make sure that you're right here, you go into the dropdown and you toggle, you switch between that Contoso environment to the new dev environment you just created. Now that I am in that environment, no new option to create. Did you create? Let me go back, Jeff. Did you go back and let's see, I can't see that picture. Yeah, that might be a situation, Jeff. Okay, that worked, Brian. Happy's got it going. Okay. Might be a situation, Jeff, where the tenants are restricted. Let's see if you can follow along. Maybe instead of creating that environment that I just did, let's see. Yeah, let me see. I got to think about that for a second. Oh, it did. Okay. So Jeff just said the screen refreshed and he now has that option. So again, maybe it's because you need to make sure we're at ready before you can create that environment. So excellent, Jeff. Thanks for the real-time feedback. Again, we'll switch environments, come back to the dev. And now in this environment, in the dev environment, you're going to come over here to apps on the left. and you'll see the 4 apps that get deployed or installed in that environment. And I go back to what Nelson said yesterday, if all of you were there in attendance, right, is there's no such thing as this perfect app for everything. And that's where Power Apps comes into play, is that it fills the gap, right? Instead of having to do this full-blown development or still using and remaining on paper-based or spreadsheet-based solutions, here's an example where maybe we are building a fundraiser app that's just perfect for us. I kept hearing people say in the Q&A, hey, can we use this for sales or CRM? I think there's better ways that you can provide value to customers instead of having to replace a first-party app like sales. Focus on the things that are germane to their business priorities. And again, maybe this is a not-for-profit organization. They're not really able to take on a full-blown not-for-profit financial management application or donor management solution. But what if you were to come up with, a solution in Power Apps here, and you can see the difference here, right? This is a model-driven app. It's kept, and the reason you could tell the difference, it's framed here in the structure that looks like a first-party app, right, in Dynamics 365. And then on the left side here, so you can see I'm starting with dashboards. Then I clicked on my donations. This is a list view. And then I can see here, I get, a list. From this list, I choose what my columns are and then how I can report on that, and click on fundraisers to see, again, yet another filtered view of my data. Now to switch apps, you just click on fundraiser, right? No logging in, logging out. Again, another value add to you guys as partners, as you're thinking about the challenges that these customers have, right? Using Azure Active Directory to be able to simplify the navigation and just do my job. I choose the innovation challenge. Here's maybe where we built a company-wide challenge and allow employees to submit ideas, right? There's no way to truly capture that in Excel, maybe. So here's an example that you can take a look and see what that might provide in terms of scenarios. So those are the sample. Now, if again, looking at the screen here, it looks like some of you guys are following along. We'll go ahead and create a model app. So same thing, I'm under apps on the left side, excuse me, through the drop-down. Now, instead of Canvas, you would choose model-driven app. And you'll even start to see the design is extremely different than what that blank canvas looked like. So here, I'm just going to show you kind of the compare and contrast. I would do trial, Matthew Newbro, as you're typing in here, sandbox or trial for your new environment. On the app, go ahead and enter in a customer model app. So I'm just going to do a compare and contrast so you guys can see what it looks like in the 2 different apps. I'm not really capturing a lot of mission critical data. Here you'll see I'll hit done. That takes about 30-40 seconds. And now here is the canvas, right? Much different. Wouldn't you all agree, as you're shaking heads and saying in the chat window there that this just looks different? The site map, this is what's going to control the navigation in the bottom left corner. So if you've seen kind of like Dynamics 365 sales or customer service or field service, this is where you group the areas. And so this kind of represents in the bottom left corner of your app, what that navigation will be for users. So again, you could have an area, a group, and then a sub area. So when I select that sub area, I'm going to call it clients is my area, and then the sub area is accounts. Then as you're developing this, you're going to see there's some required fields here. So I typed in entity, and then by selecting entity, I have to choose which entity. So you can certainly use the drop-down list. I chose account, and then my account, I renamed it or have the title here. So you can't get far without this. It'll be required. Then you hit save and close. And now you can kind of change that view. So you've got the forms, right? We saw that. So I'm on the account entity. And within that account entity, I'm going to do forms. Over on this is what forms will display on your page. So in this case here, I just want the account form. You are welcome to deselect and choose some of the pre-built existing ones. And then the view is kind of think of it as a filter. So if you remember, I had fundraisers and then donors, and it had different views. In this case here, I can switch. So give my users the opportunity to switch from active accounts, all accounts, and my accounts. And then charts, again, which charts based on what's available. And then you can see dashboards, which I'm not going to choose here. So hit save, and then go ahead and publish your app. And again, a little different, but you still have the play button on the top right corner. Now you can play that app, and you should have data similar to what I have here on my screen. All right, so you have the sub area, you have the area, the account is the sub area, and then this is my view. My view is my active accounts, and then from that view, you can choose the columns that you want to capture. I'm sure you've heard this in the previous discussions. I mean, I could make account required. I can make, whatever it is that I want to be required, I can choose to do so. And then I'll just kind of like to compare and contrast the Canvas app. You can see here the capturing of data, right? So in the Canvas app, right, you're more mobile friendly. This might be a little bit more ideal for someone who's in a keyboard using the tab key. So I put in my account name. We chose the red asterisk denotes required, and then I can save. Oh, sorry about that.
No, there you are. You're back.
Yeah,
I'll hand back over.
We had an emergency radio broadcast. Something happened. Sorry about that. It put me on hold. And then click on home. And now you'll notice.
Sorry, just so you know, you're not sharing anymore.
Excellent. Thanks. Yep.
No problem.
There we go. How's that?
Back up and running.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. And then, yeah, so now you've got your app. So when you clicked on, oh, my pen's not waking up. There we go. There's your model app. So these were the 4 sample apps that I deployed, and then there's that customer model app. So I want to show you. The other thing I wanted to point out, just something for you to think about too, and just to drive home the point of the value add that you as a partner brings to the customer. Think about where that app resides. So here I am. I'm in home.dynamics.com. And these are all the apps that I've licensed through Ingram. And so again, here's my sales app. I have Business Central running, field service. But look at this, right? So if you're thinking through kind of the strategic nature and the relationship that you have with your customers, as you're designing that app, it's sitting right there with all of their other business applications, which they could then pin this app and be like right here in the foreground, and something that is essential to their business. And it's just easy to navigate to. Okay, so just wanted to kind of point that out. All right, so now what? We've got Power Apps, and not always easy. And again, we talk a lot about what we're doing at Microsoft, and it's bridging and blending the tools that you and I, as data use information workers, sales reps, pre-sales, consultants, whatever we are, just the interaction that we have with our software. And again, we think through things, and you and I open up apps differently, or we open up new documents, new PowerPoints differently. And so what no one else on the planet does that we do really well is bridging, these structured data such as Power Apps and something that's unstructured, maybe as Teams. And so, for example, this is just a self-running video. You guys can have access to this, but where you can now embed the apps that you're creating into Teams. And so the challenge or the problem that we're solving there is, right, maybe you're saying to me, Craig, I don't know that everyone's always going to have a favorite at their homepage at home.dynamics.com, and then they have to go find the app. Maybe that doesn't work for everybody. But as we're seeing, right, the pervasive nature of Microsoft Teams on the desktop and on the phone and on the tablet to be able to embed those apps. And so what you can do, I have just a couple of screenshots here, and then we'll walk through it. If you guys are still following along, it's great. I'm going at a pace that might not be great for the folks doing all the hands-on, but you can create an app, and you go and toggle, and there's the app that I have created, the customer app, added for me, and now notice, right, residing within Teams with my activity, my chat, calendar. Now that app I just created is sitting within Microsoft Teams, fully functional. I can go and say add a new customer, and then that would bring me, right, and create a new customer and then send that to Business Central. And then again, here's another video embedded for you. This content will be available for you, how you can go and add this to your how to build an app in Teams. So I did this yesterday afternoon. I just kind of was listening to everybody, and I know this was kind of mentioned a lot. I didn't see examples for you. And so for those of you who've built an app already and you've got Teams, again, remember, I'm in my private incognito browser, and I just navigated to teams.microsoft.com, and I did not accept the switch to the app. So if you're going to do demonstrations with these personas, right, you can notice I have this persona guy up here at the top right corner. You can use the web client, and it is fully functional and provides a seamless experience between Power Platform, Power Apps, and other apps like Teams. So I'm going to step you through how you go and navigate this. So first thing you'll do, whether it's from the ellipsis or apps, you select apps and you get the full marketplace. Do a search on Power Apps and choose Power Apps. You'll add that to your environment, and then just as that so now I see Power Apps right there. Let's say, for example, I'm going to create an app. It says, all right, which team or what channel? So it's Contoso. Hit OK. This took me about 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. And now notice what you're looking at. This looks a lot like what we saw earlier, right? In both my presentation or my lab and what Ed was showing, right? You're in a Canvas designer, but you're in Microsoft Teams. So again, that's the blending of these two applications and these two environments for me to do app design and have it where my users are most likely going to find it. And then I just I didn't give a whole lot of thought to this, but I just said, oh, let me give you a customer app for partner event like today. I'll hit save. And just like you'll do in a Canvas app, you've got your data sets here. I need to connect to my data. So I select on the connect to data. And then from the drop down, I wasn't sure where I was going to go with this today. Under connectors, I started this first. Under connectors, since we made that connection to Business Central, you'll see that in the list. But then I thought, let's just create something new and simple. So I'll create a new table, right, that's being captured in Dataverse. Think of our database in the cloud. I'll create a new table, and I'll call it partners. And now I just add columns, right? So I've got my name, add my column here. I'll call it email. Notice the type, right? This is all similar to how you would tag the data sources in a model-driven app as you're designing your apps. I'll select email, hit create, and then enter in my Craig, maybe Craig at Microsoft. And so again, this becomes much more of a list-based entry. When I close that out, now notice this is again more in the design mode. But then if I hit preview, now you can see what that app would look like. So again, partners, here's my new record. It would open up into that edit screen. And then here's the list that I'm creating in my app. And again, all of that's residing right here in your navigation bar in Teams. So really, really powerful stuff. This is somewhat new. Some of this stuff started to come out last fall. And when I close out here, notice my apps are located where I can find that recent app. This is part of my standard kind of wrap up for Power Apps. I think you all have been really privy and exceptional examples. The Heathrow example of that superstar gentleman who I saw live on stage at a Microsoft event. Pick and choose the case studies that make sense for you. I spent a lot of time just reading through the stories. They're fascinating. And for me, the first one, when I first got into Power Apps about 3 or 4 years ago, was the Pepsi bottling company. A small subset, I think there were maybe 6 or 10 IT professionals supporting 1,600 staff members, and they were using the GPS location finder in the mobile device so that when a driver would show up in a local Albertsons or Kroger's or grocery store, they knew exactly not only their schedule, but like where the end cap in which location within each store. And then of course, they just began to expand. Now that I have all that data, I'm able to report on it into a Power BI dashboard. I could see consumption, use, et cetera. And so it's just a fascinating story. And then the others for me was, again, there's no such thing as the perfect app, and that's where Power Apps fits in. Metrobank was the second story I always gravitated towards when I spoke to customers and partners. There's no such thing as a bank greeter app, but Metrobank using Power Apps had someone situated at the front door so that when a client walked in, they got their name, a picture would show up, and then they would be able to direct the individual, the customer, to the appropriate area within the bank based on what they were looking to do. So just, again, just some basic examples to get you guys going. I know that you guys have been you've seen some of that. And then the last story I have was, this is something that we use at Microsoft. I'm part of a team in the One Commercial Partner team, and on the tech team, there's about 180 of us in the US, and we get together once, sometimes twice a year to hone our technical sword, if you will. And this is all peer-to-peer kind of an agenda where we teach each other. And so they built in Power Apps a full-blown event management application embedded into Teams. So you can explore, you're based on the date, you can see the agendas, you can build my schedule, you could see event eval, and you could download all the speakers, notes. So it was just, I always show this as just a screenshot as an example of kind of the art of what if. So what now? How do we build a practice? Listen, Nelson has some fantastic evidence on the areas that you can get involved with. I'm not going to repeat that. I just have screenshots. I know these are assets that we share with you. The first and easiest place to start your journey is on the Power Apps homepage. Go to powerapps.microsoft.com and sign in here, select on Learn. Great way to get some of the self-paced learning. So if you want to build labs on your own, if you guys want to leverage content that we're producing, take a look at that. And that's how I've built the labs that I presented with today. That didn't come from Microsoft Corporate. I spent some time on documentation and kind of figured out, hey, what would make sense for partners? And leverage the community. It is a fledgling and robust, active community. And while you have an extremely important partner in Ingram, you've got a large community here, user groups, community blogs. If you have ideas and suggestions, this is a great way to get those published and vote on maybe other suggestions that are out there. So great opportunity on MS Learn, right? This is our go-to for customers and partners. Free learning. I mean, go learn about the Power Apps. I mean, you can go into MS Learn, filter on Power Apps, and I came up with 102 results on the Power Platform. And you don't even navigate beyond the Power App. So if you remember, I was in the data connections, I was creating apps. Notice right under the home page is the Learn button. So you can take that guided learning right here within powerapps.microsoft.com. App in a Day, you've seen that. Again, you're welcome to attend, but if you're a partner, right, there's just great opportunity to host your own event. Think about customers who have heard about Power Apps, or right, Edwin talked about how he spent over the weekend playing around on blogs and websites and YouTube videos. Maybe you could be that go-to partner where you host App in a Day. The content's already built, and you just need to kind of coordinate and use the events page here, work with the Ingram team, and become that expert in teaching customers how they build their own apps. As you get more involved, right, you could then start to publish your apps on AppSource. I mean, that's, to me, the real estate that continues to promote who you are and your expertise. Again, I started out with something very basic in Canvas-based apps and model apps, and now apps and teams. But think about getting a landscape here for you to be going, and customers to go out to partners and look at by industry or by department all the expertise that you've packaged up in Power Apps. So a tremendous opportunity for you as partners. With that, I'm going to pause for a second here and maybe field some questions. Are you guys going along here? How are we doing on 80 folks still live? That's incredible. Incredible. Good to see the enthusiasm. What questions do you guys have? I'm going to, we can pause here. Remember to use that Q&A panel, the IM message window, if you guys have anything at all. Matthew, any softball questions just to change it up a little bit? Is Dataverse a rebrand from Jeff Baker? Is Dataverse a rebrand, or is there more to it? It is a rebrand. So Jeff, as you knew it as the Common Data Service, functionality-wise continues to grow, but it's nothing more than a brand change. I think there were some legal reasons why we had to change. So Andrew's asking, how can I put my own website app into Teams so I'm not limited by the Power App platform? I'm not sure I know the answer or what you're trying to solve there, Andrew. Maybe you'd help rephrase that. Any other questions on Power Apps? Are you guys still listening, still enjoying? How about throw a little thumbs up there in the chat window here? Let me know you guys are good. Pace was okay. Is anybody still building an app? Again, this wasn't meant for me just to talk, but to guide you guys through. I mean, you've had speakers the last couple of days. Thanks, Vanessa. Appreciate it. We've had, again, chance for you guys to build and do hands-on. This is content you guys are welcome to and host on your own. Awesome. Thanks, Timothy. Appreciate it, Ryan. Great. Okay. Is anybody still in the process of building an app? If not, I'll continue and we'll get to the next. We get lots of thumbs up, so I'll keep going. I don't know. Oh, nice. All right. I didn't know where that was going, Matthew. The black and white GIF there. Okay. I think she was about to drink wine, and I thought it's too early here to drink wine.
There's a couple more questions coming in as well around from Jeff Baker and Matt Newborough. A couple of questions there.
Yeah, Matthew, let me follow up with Matthew here and Ingram team here. I'm not sure. Are you trying to host App in a Day? When you say you're registering it twice and it was full, I assume you're talking about just attending App in a Day. Is that correct? No, just attend. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't checked out there in a while. Again, partners, the ones that are hosting those events, you can also download the tools and just go through it yourself. I mean, it's a self-guided experience. And again, that's something a little bit different from the way I like to coach partners. So you can go, I think it's just, again, aka.ms app in a day. You should be able to download the zip file. And yeah, thanks. Great, Brian. Appreciate the support there. All right. So we are done with this guy. We've done a little bit of Power Apps. I hope you guys saw the breadth of that. Again, combined with all the supporting messaging you got the last couple of days. Let's go ahead, and it looks like I'm still sharing my screen. So I'm going to move into Power BI for no apparent reason to skip, around here. And, and again, you guys have these slides. I know you've been provided with, I know Matt's slides from day one were great to kind of position what it is and the opportunity. I'm the demo guy. Let's just show you how to make it real. And so I've got a couple of scenarios and demos that you guys can build, starting with uncovering opportunities. This is going to be connecting the Power BI dashboard from Business Central. I'll show you how to design a new dashboard. And yet again, right, how do we blend these two together? This isn't just a silo where, hey, you go and create an app and it's done, right? You saw on the case study with Pepsi, right? They use the data from Power Apps that's stored in Dataverse to design this beautiful, rich, colorful, and rich in visualizations dashboard. And so I'll show you how to bring those two together. And then just like I did with Power Apps, I'll show you, the steps I would do if I were in your shoes just starting out. Okay, so the naming convention is so simple as you're getting involved with our apps. If you remember, I said, Power Apps is powerapps.microsoft.com. Power BI is powerbi.microsoft.com. So very simple and easy. Again, remember, I'm signed in with my in-private browser. So this way, I'm not bringing data from my @Microsoft tenant, but from my demo tenant. So you'll notice the little ball, the balloon that I'm having you follow here. You hit get data. And again, I don't mean to insult anyone who's been doing Power BI for a long time. Again, designed more for those who are brand new to this. But there's 4 ways in which you would design a Power BI dashboard in terms of getting data. Now, my organization, this column on the left, this is how your IT teams can publish data sets, dashboards, reports for you to consume on your own. So for example, when I'm in at Microsoft and I'm logged with Craig at Microsoft credentials, I've got hundreds, if not thousands, of dashboards and reports that Microsoft IT provides to me. The two on the right, databases, pretty self-explanatory, and files as well. Here in the services is where I guide partners when we do the hands-on workshop. So I select on Get, and in the forefront, you get this screen that is essentially delivering to you the apps that are published in AppSource for Power BI. So again, I encourage all of you to kind of look through, hey, what is out here? What can I use? But then again, from a revenue, again, I think partner first. How amazing would it be if your Power BI dashboard that you built for senior living centers, that you built for electronic retail stores, resides right here within that opportunity within this apps? Okay, so again, just trying to think through how do we make money on that. In this lab, I want you to type in Business Central, and notice again, I've got a couple of apps that have been built by third parties. I'm looking for the app that was built by Microsoft as a first party here for Business Central. I know it not just because this is Microsoft, but also I'm familiar with the icon, the logo. I can read it, and then I'll select Get It Now. Once I have that connected, and again, you shouldn't have any kind of security credentials. It recognizes the user that you're in with, and it should automatically authenticate you. I click on that, and now I've got my full rendering Business Central dashboard. And this is powerful, right? You think about a lot of business owners that are either in a small, medium business, SMB, they don't have access to something as rich as Power BI. The folks who I've met over the years that are getting involved with, within Dynamics, most of them came, say, from a QuickBooks environment, and their accountant is feeding them spreadsheets and reams of data in printed reports, and they're not able to look at opportunities that are afforded them because they're so backed up running their business. And then on Saturday afternoons, they're reading through spreadsheets and just looking at rows and columns of data and maybe some charts. What if, as you're presenting to them, not only this online dashboard, which again, I can run it from my phone, I could see Power BI, but also if I were to use the ellipsis here, choose the see related content and get quick insights. So when I view these insights, these are cards, right? So quick insights are cards which are the results of all the data analysis, excuse me. And so as the owner is combing through that, imagine instead of looking at spreadsheets and looking at two-dimensional data, now I'm getting, context and saying, hey, Craig, you've got some outliers here, or there's the majority of accounts is coming from code 40, whatever that might mean, or our total revenue is noticeably less than what it has been historically. Here's a good example, right? Again, just sample data, not much, but that's the story I build around kind of the sample data here. I'm sure you guys have great stories to share with customers as you're going through that. The navigation is you could use home. I use a lot often in Power BI with favorites and recent. It makes it easier for me to kind of comb through some of these. And then this customer profitability sample. I'll talk about this in just a moment, but there's a number of different sample reports that the Power BI team provides for you as partners to present just different ways in which data can be presented back to those customers. The other thing is this Q&A, question and answer, and if it's enabled, can be extremely helpful as you're presenting to a CXO, right, president or chief exec officer at an organization, where again, instead of them spending Friday nights at 6 p.m. looking at kind of what's the opportunity, what am I missing? Oh, okay, I can see my gross margin percentage, my revenue, but how are we doing across the business? Maybe instead of me having to go to each tab in a worksheet and looking at Denver sales and Chicago sales, maybe I can go in and ask the database, I can go ask the chart by typing it in. And so here you can see there are pre-built queries that as you're designing the report that I can just pick from, or as a chief officer, I can just start to use IntelliSense. And as I'm typing, what is the revenue? I'm giving pre-populated suggestions. And as I continue to type, revenue by state, Power BI recognizes that context and gives me a geographic representation of my sales by state. So again, just some examples for you. And again, the breadth beyond just looking at charts and graphs, but using this in the day in the life. As I mentioned, I use recent and favorites. The other thing I like to demonstrate in Power BI, and I keep harping on this, and it's important for you as a partner to say the same, is this blending of productivity tools. Because as let's say as a president or as an owner of a company, I'm going to get ready to present to my board's members, my constituents. What do I do with this, right? Let's say I'm getting ready to go to a conference room, or I'm getting back on an airplane. Well, with Power BI, I can take this data that I brought in from my financial management system from Business Central. I did my analysis. I'm getting ready to throw this up onto a monitor. Maybe I'm getting ready for a Teams call. I hit PowerPoint. It takes my charts and creates slides that I could then use effectively. So I then go to slideshow mode, and I just advance my slide. Hit next. Somebody raises their hand. They ask me, hey, what's going on with total revenue? Can we drill into that? Now, I do need to be connected to the internet, but if I drill into that chart, it brings me right back here into the Power BI dashboard that I was using in PowerPoint. Doesn't have to be Business Central data. Again, it's just something that I use. And then the last scenario, before I show you how to create some samples, is is Microsoft Forms Pro. So Forms Pro recently rebranded to be called Customer Voice. It's just another example. So if you go and do a search when you do Get Data, remember I showed you Get Data. If you do Customer Voice or Forms Pro, you'll get to see their example that you can use to build out Power BI story. And I always use this as kind of like Forms Pro is basically, it's an online form that you could send out in around customer satisfaction, or to our customer service agents or call centers, however it might be. Maybe marketing is using it to track NPS responses and scores. So here you can see the net promoter score of this of these particular product lines, and then I click on agent performance, and then kind of steal my Jim Collins quote of being good to great. Right? It's great that I capture these phrases in an online survey, which, by the way, is being stored in Dataverse, right? The same data warehouse database that I'm using for Power Apps, but to focus not just on the things that we do really well, but maybe I create a filter on the things that we don't do well. Click on Go Back, and then on the one thing I wanted to also do before we leave on this is, again, the Power BI team, just like the Power Apps team, is providing examples. It may not always be pronounced and easy for you to find, but there's a samples under the Get Data hub. And when you go and get those samples, you'll see here, you've got 8 different examples that you can go bring into your environments. They're not connected to databases, but again, choose some of these so you can just see the graphical nature of the different controls that you can apply on those dashboards. And so I have you, when I host these workshops online or in person, usually I have you select on the retail sales. And so when you click on it, you'll hit connect. And now I've got that example connected to to Power BI. Okay. Any questions? I'm like back and forth. My eyes are like a tennis match here, and it's snowing like crazy here in Colorado. So now I've got something else on the other side of my shoulder to go back and forth on. Any questions at all? Pace is okay. I'm assuming then we've kind of moved away from the hands-on experience. Is anybody building these out as we're going along? Okay. Okay. So now to build this out, one other example, there's a couple of ways in which you can author reports in Power BI. You can do it right from within Power BI in the online experience. And so what I did is I just did File, New Report. And by doing so, I got a new tab here, or a new dashboard, I should say. You can also do it in Power BI Desktop. And again, it just depends on the task. Power BI Desktop gives you a ability to do much more complex aggregation of data, cleaning of data. But for me, and just teaching people the basics, someone who's in a pre-sales role, I've got this Power BI dashboard I created where I'm bringing in this chart here by quantity sold by customer. I then kind of built out a second chart here on quantity sold. My third is a graph on, on a map. And then I used text to create a title. So then you can hit the plus sign here to select new, and you get a blank canvas. So nothing's on this report. And now because I'm already connected to Business Central, I'm using the same data set. The fields that you'll see on the right here are coming in from that existing report that I pulled in earlier. So you can either click on it or you can just drag and drop. So when you move your cursor here, you just drag it and it'll bring in the data that you're connected to. So in this case here, we have 5 customers, looks like 6 from our database. And then I can just click on or drag and drop quantity sold. And now notice I've got a data set. I have my customer name and quantity sold. And then from the pick list on the right, I can just choose whichever visualization that I want. In this case here, I chose a tree map. Tree map gives me a little bit kind of a contextual understanding of how much based on sales of the customer. Now I can start to build out anywhere else. I can drag, if I drag something right onto this, it'll incorporate it. If I drag something into anywhere on the template, that's where it will be. So for example, I chose item number and then the quantity sold. And in this case, I'll have a stacked bar chart. You can resize it. Again, very simple and easy. Then I could drag and drop the customer name, put the city, and then if you remember, I had that geo. I can create a map, and now I've got a map, and it looks like here I have a couple of sales here in Georgia. And then I could just drag a text box, add a title, and now I've got that report. And then when I drill in, each one of these is connected based on the way I've designed that report. So I click on School of Fine Art, I can see where they're located, and I could see the items that they're buying from us. Okay, now, one more example, as you guys are following along here, and that's, I keep talking about this blending of apps, right? Again, you're building out muscle. I saw someone post something here in the Q&A about building muscle memory. Here's an example where I'm going to take two parts of the Power Platform, Power BI and Power Apps, and bring them together. And the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and design that app. Then I'm going to add buttons. The buttons are going to serve as a filter. I'll connect those buttons, and then we'll play the app itself. So I'm back into Power Apps, right? Make.powerapps.com. Another way, you don't have to go right into apps fresh from the homepage here. I can create an app from blank, right? Here's how I can create a model-driven app or that portal. If I create an app from blank, determine if it's formatted for either tablet or phone. And in this case here, I'm giving it a title of Maps in Power Apps. I'll create. And you've seen this. You've seen this a couple of times, right? This blank canvas. Now on the upper corner under the insert, I'm going to insert charts. And that chart is going to be a Power BI title. So I select on that Power BI title, and it'll prompt me for the workspace, the dashboard, which in that case is the retail analysis. So that's what the sample I had you connect to. And then this year's sales. Now, if you're following along with me and following this in a recording, it took me just a little bit of a trial and error. When you download that retail sales, it took me a while, but it's the last one in the list that you'll want to connect to that has the data from that sample report. Choose this year's sales. So I've made the connection to the data. Now resize your app so that now I've got all these sales happening here in the mid-Atlantic part of the United States. And you can see here again, it's screen one and it's pulling from Power BI. Next, I want to filter on that. So I'm providing, the requirements that came from our client is we really want to focus just on the sales in North Carolina and Delaware. Could you help us with that? So still under the insert menu, I'll choose to the insert button. And now here's a button, and I'll drag it over to the right side. And notice I've got kind of call outs to both sides, depending on the way you prefer to navigate. In Power Apps, to change the properties of something you put onto your palette, you need to make sure that these balls are selected, these circles. So when I choose that, you'll notice that the properties becomes available. And now you can either rename it on the right side where I've highlighted it. I prefer to rename this on the left Again, totally up to you, but it's a really good practice to rename the elements in your tree view, because as you're going to be building out formulas off of this, you don't want to have it as button 1. It's going to be much easier as you're building out formulas to say button _ North Carolina. Now you could shortcut, or you could take the long way. You could do insert and add another button. For me, once I choose the button size, I just do Control C and Control V. So store sales in North Carolina. I have store sales in Delaware. And then I went in and edited these with the color template. So I've got a gray background, 3 different shades of green, and then all store sales removes that. So I haven't done anything technically yet to connect these two, but again, I've got the buttons, and then you can see here, _all, _Delaware, _North Carolina. Now to connect the buttons, you'll come over here to the drop down, and this is again where you'll spend a lot of your time. And again, if you go into the workshop app in a day, you spend a lot of time kind of changing. You could hide things, what's visible. If you remember when I had the plus sign here on select, in this case here, the tile URL, and then I'll select on the buttons here for North Carolina. So this is where I'm going to connect the button. So I'll choose on select, and here's where I have my formula. So the formula is I'm going to filter the data when the territory equals NC or North Carolina. I'll do the same for Delaware, only changing in the brackets to DE. And then for the all button, I have it filtered, just the 2 parentheses. And then when you come back to Power BI, you just want to add this @myvar with this URL. And again, I know that some of you are following along via recording, or you'll come back to this for those of you who are live. This is a sample you can grab off of the samples out on the Power BI dashboard or up in the self-study labs. And now I want to go ahead and test the app. So I hit the play button. So I'm in play mode, right? You see the app, and when I select on North Carolina, I get a filter of just the sales in North Carolina, and then I get the store sales in Delaware, and then all store sales. So I just thought that was relevant for you to see. It's not just about building an app and it sits in its silo or just by itself, but you can start to blend and bring the data that you're capturing in the app into a dashboard. How do you get started? Again, I always say is the first part is always going to be on the product landing page. So again, powerbi.microsoft.com is a great place to start. Under resources, you could choose learn. Again, there's a lot of guided learning labs out here. This is how I spent my time. That's where I got that filter, the one we just showed. There's some guided learnings out here. What else? Under the community, again, just like Power Apps, there's a burgeoning community that you guys can learn from each other and partners who have invested so much in here. And you could check, the forums. And I know you're going to have questions and events. Maybe there's an event that I think someone mentioned you can't get in the Power App in a day. There's dashboard in a day workshop too. MS Learn. You've got certifications out there. There's a new exam certification around Power BI. It's a DA 100. So if you want to test your mettle and knowledge and start to promote yourselves both professionally as well as through your partner, I think this is a great opportunity for you to learn about Power BI. As I mentioned, there's a dashboard in a day. So it's not just Power BI in a day. I'm sorry, app in a day. And here's my story on dashboard in a day. Again, I live in Denver. I live about 5 minutes away from the Microsoft office. And about a year ago, I just happened to go in on a Monday morning. I had to do something with my computer. I had to meet with somebody. And the parking lot was busy. And again, in Denver, much like many of the other locations of Microsoft offices. We're not large campuses, and we usually have maybe 20 or 30 people in the office if we're lucky in a given day, but the parking lot was full. And I walked in and I followed the traffic, and they were coming up to the 4th floor. And in our multi-purpose room or NPR room where we host these big events, there were over 100 people, or maybe there were 100 attendees, people who were just dying to grab knowledge. There was one person, one partner hosting a dashboard in a day. And I just thought, wow, he's got a captive audience, one person to 100 people who are there looking to learn how to design dashboards and reports. So again, if you're looking on ways in which you can become a leader, he had a great story. He talked about connecting data, but it was an excellent consulting opportunity to expand beyond just building one report for one client. But think about maybe 20% of the people in the room can go back and say, hey, can we hire you to help us design reports and dashboards? Just like apps, you've got partner showcase, you've got partner profiles right directly within here. So it's just another great opportunity for you to showcase your stuff. Okay. All right. So that is Power BI. How are we doing here? What's the time frame here, Matthew? Do you want to take a 9-minute break? Do you want to give folks a break, or should we keep going?
Yeah, tell you what, we'll go 9-minute break. So if we say everyone back on the hour, we can go grab a coffee, a bathroom break, whatever's needed, and then we can get back all fresh, ready for the next section.
Yeah, we've got 2 more to go. I'll do Power Automate and Power Virtual Agents, and we'll wrap up. But you kind of get a sense of the flow. It's kind of hands-on, but you're welcome to watch. So I will see you back in 9 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Hey everybody, I'm back. How are you guys? Matthew, should we get started, or do you have a standard protocol? You stick your face on the screen and say, "Let's get started."
That's it. I'm just going to smile, wave, and say, go for it, Craig.
Yeah, right on. Hey everybody, we've got just a few more topics to go, but I was just kind of thinking through, just in the IM window, could you all that are on live maybe drop a note and tell me there's like one thing that you didn't know about Power Apps and Power BI that's like, wow, that was something I didn't know. So if you can, just when you get a chance here in the IM window, just let me know you guys are still engaged here, and Andrew and Edwin and Tom and Howard. I've seen a bunch of you guys here asking questions, and it's been great. Brian, thanks again for all the engagement you've been providing on the chat. So again, if there's one thing that you've taken away from the session so far that you didn't know before, let me know what that is. Nice, Brian, appreciate it. Yeah, though you didn't realize it was what you see is what you get for report building. Nice. Anyone else want to share? Teams integration with Power Apps. Yeah, that's, again, we introduced that late in the fall last year, and it continues to evolve. So I've got a meeting with a client. So made your day awesome. Thanks for the feedback, everybody. Appreciate it. Okay, so we are going to spend a little bit of time on Power Automate, and let me just, you guys have slides. You've been slided enough. So what the demonstration that I use around Power Automate, right? Edwin showed one earlier today on this whole robotic process automation. When we all think of Power Automate, right, is this flow. It's like you and I are the center of almost every single business process in every organization. And so how do we leverage technology to help drive cost justifications, right? How do we automate processes that are captured maybe in Power Apps? Or maybe there is this is such an easy part, I think, in the sales discovery of just asking questions. And as soon as I hear the word manual, or as soon as you hear Excel, like I start to say, okay, what about it? What are you guys doing in Excel? What are you manually doing? And I think one of the stories for me in presenting Power Automate to audiences like yourselves is through like a customer onboarding process, probably germane to everyone. And yet, how many organizations, including Microsoft, right, do we have a partner onboarding process that when you sign up with your MPN and you get your credentials, do you get this white glove experience? Do you get the red carpet rolling out or any other colored experience that you would expect? And so for me, what I'll show you is using Dynamics applications such as Business Central and Power Automate and Microsoft Teams, how you can set up, and this process begins when I create a new customer. The sales rep is notified that they can do business with the client, but then also the customer receives the welcome email. And I'll do my best I'll show you how we design that flow in Power Automate. And just like I did with the previous examples, where do you go online to just get some information? So I'm going to create a new customer, and I want to, again, point out a couple of things here. Again, I'm using that CDX environment. So I'm logged in as somebody maybe in a sales role who is purely just entering in new customers and maybe entering in transactions. So I could be an accountant, but I don't have final approval yet of adding data. And so here I'm logged in as Alex, and we get a new client. And so I'm going to create that new customer in Business Central. This is the customer card, and you'll see the fields that are required, for example, the name. And so I create Aaron Fitz Electrical. I'm going to give Aaron a credit limit of $3,200. Let's see if I get approved. And then in order for me to trigger this business process, this flow, I want to send an email notification to the client. I need to capture their email. So I put in Adele V as an email address. Now, again, I'm done. I know that this goes through an approval process in our organization in Kronos. So under the request approval, I hit send approval, and you'll see that's grayed out until it gets either approved or declined. Now I could approve the credit term. So again, I think about maybe an accounting manager or finance manager doing credit checks, running reports, making sure the customer is in good standing. And I can either approve that directly within Business Central. I can create a workflow that just shows up on my homepage, or I can even leverage Outlook and Power Automate. So you can see here where I am logged in as MA. So I'm no longer in as AW, as Alex Wilbur. I'm in as this administrator. And so then you could see the details that have been created. So I sent an email, and I could choose to approve or reject. I'll choose approve, and I can even put in some notes and then submit. And now I'm done. Well, that continues, right? There's this whole process. How do I let the salesperson know? How do I let the customer know? So in the case here, what I'm leveraging is two areas of Microsoft 365. You can see here now I'm in as Alex Wilbur in Outlook. Again, I can't emphasize enough why it's so helpful to use these CDX trial environments. So you can see here, Alex gets an email, right? The administrator has approved Aaron Fitz. I could gone as so far as to even put in their credit terms or anything else about the customer. And then what I did here is I took advantage of Teams. And so as part of my Power Automate design and the cascading of that approval, I also added Teams, because I know that our sales reps use Teams interchangeably, or I should say quite a bit, not interchangeably with Outlook. And you'll see here under Kronos, my sales team, and in the general channel, as you look down at the bottom, notice I have, again, text that I added. You could begin working with Aaron Fitz. So I use the @company or Aaron Fitz here. I could have even, again, same thing. I could have put in their credit terms, their first name, or whatever else was on that customer card. And then the third and final step was not just notifying the sales rep by email, notifying them via the Teams channel, but again, because I capture that customer's email, here's that Adele Vance, right? I might do something a little bit more graphical in nature, but you get the point, right? I am now this process that's typically is manual or doesn't even exist. I have now using Power Automate to send these flows to my customer as well as the sales rep. So then the customer gets some kind of email message here. Hey, welcome to Kronos. Thanks for your business. And by the way, we have a customer portal where you can go in and learn about all the training and use of our products. Just an example of, again, Power Automate. This, it's so interesting as I'm doing these workshops. Much of this is for you guys in the example where, during discovery with your clients, during initial discovery, finding out what are those processes. So maybe not everybody has a need for an onboarding experience. My point of that is it's not always easy to demonstrate, all the different flows and workflows that you can automate here. Now to set this up, just like you're going to do in all the other apps we've seen so far, from an in-private browser, right? I'm logged in as the administrator, and you can either go to flow.microsoft.com, that was the older name, or you can go to powerautomate.microsoft.com. Okay, those are the easiest ways to get there. Of course, you can always navigate through the app switcher to all the apps that you have licensed to. And then under My Flows, you've heard this time and time again, the connectors. There's all types of existing connectors out in the marketplace. I can go and create a new And in this case here, I'm just going to create a new from the template. And so again, look at all of these different connectors that have already been set up, right? So for example, if I wanted to have any kind of trigger button that sends me a reminder in 10 minutes, or start approval whenever something is added to a SharePoint list or library. Now for our purposes, again, I'm focused primarily on business usage. In this case, we saw where I'm leveraging Business Central for that customer creation. So when you type in Business Central, you'll see all the different, pre-built out of the box connectors and, flows that have been set up for you to connect to your trial environment or a customer's production environment. The one I used for that previous example is how you request an approval for Dynamics 365 Business Central whenever we do a customer approval. Now, if you're following along, you're gonna come to this screen here. These little green check marks is what you're waiting for. It takes a couple of seconds, not much. But then once you get the 3 green check marks, it's okay, and you'll see the green, the blue button continue light up. And then here's what you'll see in kind of the architect or the design of that particular flow. The only thing you need to do to begin with is you'll see the required fields like your environment name and company name. The production should pop up. If not, choose it. And then remember I said earlier, there's 2 companies with Business Central. You'll want to choose that Kronos USA. Now I know we all navigate software differently. I have found it easy, at least for me in my brain, to navigate Power Automate by collapsing the boxes and then opening up the new ones. So what I do is I click on that bar here and then expand the next one. So when you click on these bars, they expand and collapse. Same thing, you'll select the company, Kronos US, expand. Now I wanted to start an approval, and that's going to be that was assigned to my administrator, right? The MOD at the time, you saw that user. And then I collapse this again and expand it. So again, it just kind of keeps my screen a little bit cleaner for me and easier for me to keep track of this. So this is the template flow. And now I'm going forward now with the branching, if yes and if no. So on the yes side, right? Remember I sent that email. If yes, we'll send an email with the subject. And then remember I put in the body, or I shouldn't say the body, but the tags. So I've got this customer number, their customer name, etc. And then here's, you can see where I could put in the approval ID. So it's requested by, and then I collapse that. Again, you're just going through the steps of selecting yes and no. I'm sorry, the company name. And then I hit save. And then I want to send that email. Well, we already did the email, excuse me. The other part that you saw I did is I added another action, and I'm choosing Microsoft Teams. And then from the list, I wanted to post a message. Once I choose that, I'll add the team ID. So it's Kronos, and then that was in sales, was my channel. And then you just type in the body of the email. Save it, publish it, and you got your flow off and running. And that's how I connected Business Central to Teams and Power Automate to get us up and running. So where would you go? Again, I know there were a wealth of resources. I know Matthew's team is doing a fantastic job of creating these channels for you and getting to go. For future reference, again, powerautomate.microsoft.com is the great place to start. And just like you saw with the other areas of the Power Platform, under Learn, you've got the blog, self-paced learning, the community here. If you click on the self-paced learning, it'll bring you here with a filter of Power Automate into MS Learn. And then there's, again, a number of different communities. If you want the shortcut links to them with videos, the roadmap, or you saw that from the community page in the top. So again, plenty of information, again, how to get started with powerautomate.microsoft.com. All right, the fourth and last of the parts of the members of the Power Platform is Power Virtual Agent. It's somewhat of a newer one. If you've never heard the term before, think of it as these, they call them bots. Think about a scenario. Well, I'll show you the scenario, what we'll do, but I've got some kind of slides that you guys can have access to. Again, I've been through your sessions. I know you've seen enough slides that let's just kind of go through the hands-on, but here's what chatbots do, right? Remove repetitive tasks. The scenario, think a lot of organizations use this around like self-service. Maybe you've got a customer portal where they're going and doing, self-serve. What's my account? Do I have information about orders? What's my outstanding balance? Some things that you could then train the bot to do. So again, here's all the messaging slides for you. This is what I'm spending my time on for you, the demo, the hands-on. So I'm going to show you how to get started. And then the scenario I have, and I would really love to see partners using this for your own, and that is, how do I nurture a prospect on my website? And then I'll show you in step 3 how to create the Power Virtual Agent. So I'll spend most of the time in steps 2 and 3. In your tenants, and I keep mentioning this over and over again, right? In an incognito or in private browser, if you go to powervirtualagent.microsoft.com, you will see where you can start a trial. So for my demo accounts, it doesn't come with CDX. I'm sorry, it doesn't come with the CDX trial. You have to go and create that. So you go into powervirtualagent.microsoft.com, select on that free trial, and then you'll be prompted once that it's created and provisioned to create. The first thing it'll always say is, okay, Craig, what's the bot? What do you want to call it? And so I have mine called Nurture Prospects, and it's going off, remember that same environment, that .dev environment. And I hit create. And that's it. So now imagine this scenario, right? All of you have your own websites as partners. And how many anonymous prospects come to your website looking for some kind of experience that gives you, say, demonstrations? I don't want to talk to a sales rep. I just want to see what it is that this partner does and see if they're the right fit for me before I pick up the phone. And I think you know this, right? This has been going on for at least 5-8 years, where our prospects, at least in Dynamics, are self-qualifying, and they're finding research on YouTube. They're finding research on your competitors' websites, and they're judging you based on what your website provides in terms of education. So imagine if you had a scenario where you would respond to a customer inquiry and then give them that personalized experience, and then in turn, that gives you a lead. So I'll show you that in action. When you create a Power Virtual Agent in your environment, there is a place in which you could test it on a sample page, or instead of you going into a production website. And this is what it used to look like a few weeks ago. So I created this bot, this virtual agent, and the first thing is that I type in, I say hello, and so the bot says, hi, I'm a virtual agent. I can help you with account, questions, orders, store information, store hours, whatever it might be. If you want to speak to somebody, just let me know. Hey, by the way, what is it you want to help me? What is it that you're looking for? So I type in the message and I say, hey, can I see a demo? So that's my trigger phrase. So my bot, my Power Virtual Agent, sees that when I hit send, it says, okay, let me take you over here. So I've got that information. But in the second response, the agent says, before I send you demos, I want to personalize that, because what I'm going to send to Tom, what I'm going to send to Stephen, what I'm going to send to Mike and to Howard is going to be different than I might send to Matthew, right? Because I know that all of you are looking for something, but it could be different. And so I ask the question, Howard, Tom, Mike, who are you? Brian, are you a CMO? Are you a marketer, or are you a compliance manager? So I choose compliance manager, and then look at the results. So now I branch off of that response, and I'm now curating a personalized experience for that compliance manager. And I say that I'm going to send you our GDPR compliance and initiatives report. Here's a link to it. Hey, before you leave, would you like to join our industry compliance newsletter? Yes or no? Right? So I'm giving that prospect, who I might never have met, an opportunity now to opt in. I choose yes, and now I send them a link. Now this is a landing page that I am using for Dynamics 365 marketing, just to add another app into your portfolio. And this is just a form I have on that landing page. And once my client prospect fills that out, they're accessing the landing page, they're accessing the information. That then creates a lead in my Dynamics 365 sales application. So that the bots and virtual agent can obviously be applied in different scenarios. You probably see a lot of them in the customer service side of it and call center. For me, I've always been a non-technical person in a technical role at Microsoft. And when Power Virtual Agents came out, I thought this was so incredibly powerful for you to think about how to design something just on your own pages. And so how to do that in Power Virtual Agent. So again, powervirtualagent.microsoft.com. You will find the different topics. All of these are sample that comes with the trial. I created one called Demo Inquiry. So if I open up that topic, Demo Inquiry, remember I said that I had a trigger phrase, can I see a demo? You enter in any trigger phrase you want. And the other thing I want to point out, if you go on the blog, there's a blog post on the Power Virtual Agent team. I can go into an FAQ and paste those in as my trigger phrases. So that would be another way of developing, and teaching and training this bot, this Power Virtual Agent, on how to interact with people dynamically. So let me come back here as I'm talking about that. So again, you could type in an FAQ, add it in here, and then you go to your authoring canvas. And in my authoring canvas, remember I said, it said, hi, welcome, and then the trigger phrase is what kicked it off. And I chose, can I see a demo? But my bot knows it could be any form. Matthew and I might ask a different question. Can I see demos? I'm looking for demos. Can you show me the product? And then the bot responded, let me show you. Before I send you demos, I said, what's your position? Let me scroll down. And then here was where we branched to personalize that. And so if it was a CMO, right, if the text responded with CMO, the message is going to be personalized to that individual. The same for the marketer, but then as you remembered, I chose the compliance manager, and this is where I gave them the link to download, as well as a link to that online form to opt in. And then on the left side here, right, I also get visualizations to help drive the conversations around, how is this bot working? How's Power Virtual Agent for my demo inquiry working? What's the escalation rate, abandon rates? And so you get a lot of that information here within that Power Virtual Agent. So again, you don't hear, I think as you get into the journey of Power Platform, right? I mean, you probably don't hear as much about Power Virtual Agents as you hear more about Power Apps and Power BI, but it provides, fits for the right organization and for the right steps for your clients. It serves a need. So to get started again, Power Virtual Agent, you've got the similar thing. You've got this online, come back here, self-paced learning, which will open up to MS Learn. And then you can kind of, again, navigate to all the documentation that you had there on their website. Where'd my mouse go? There we go. Okay. With that, I started, earlier today, I started with a car, and I said my job at Microsoft is to help find, the smooth road for you. And at the risk of sounding too corny, the future for Dynamics partners, new as well as old, is extremely bright and really promising. And again, it's up to you on to explore what makes sense for you in the applications that complement how you're going to market. I haven't seen this many partners who have never sold Dynamics seeing and becoming successful and seeing the business opportunity. So I truly hope and believe what we presented to you the last 2 days gave you a great insight on how to get started, in the different applications. And again, I'd like to repeat this one as well. I know our focus was at the bottom of the slides here. With the Power Platform, but just know there's so many other apps that are integrated in our platform, and we continue to evolve and introduced, I think there's 2 or 3 new apps that are coming with our April release. We have 2 releases every year that, again, we're introducing new capability, new functionality based on what customers are asking for. And so, find the app that's right for you, and maybe it's none of it. Maybe this is too much. Maybe you're good with the business opportunity you're presenting at and working in, or maybe there's something that triggered, says, wow, this fits and complements what we're doing. Just to wrap up on the Power Platform, there's a separate landing page, powerplatform.microsoft.com. It's just another way to get to the 4 different applications. And then I always drive everyone, partners and customers, to dynamics.microsoft.com, because if you're like, hey, Craig, what's going on with field service? How do I learn more about that, or relationship sales under the products? You can kind of branch out here to see all the commerce, connected store, fraud protection, marketing, whatever app it is that you want to get more involved in. Okay. So again, with that, I want to thank you so much for the investment and the time. I speak in behalf of Nelson and myself, the 2 folks here at Microsoft. You guys are in great hands. Matthew is doing a fantastic job leading the Ingram team. And again, I've worked so hard with them in the past behind the scenes. And again, I appreciate your commitment and interest in growing Dynamics to the level that makes sense for you and your practice. With that, Matthew, I'll pass it on to you. You're welcome to attempt to grill me with questions or, whatever it is you guys need. And again, every resource I presented here, Matthew, that if I didn't already share it with you, you'll get it in their hands.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, no, that was absolutely brilliant. I don't know if you've seen my comment in the chat, but you even had my little one hooked on your content. She was sat on my knee watching away a minute ago while the wife was getting the bath ready. So no, really good content. Thank you. If anyone has got any questions, feel free to come off mute. Feel free to write in the chat. We've got the time. I'm happy to give you some of your day back, and I'm sure you'll be grateful of that. I've had a lot of requests around joining the Teams channel, which is great. I've also had some emails around, and one thing that's really great, and Craig, you might like to hear this as well, following on from these sessions today, a number of you that are watching these now are thinking about your existing customers, and you were thinking of going down one path to help them, and now all of a sudden you're thinking Power Apps, Power Automate, that's the way we can help your customers. So it's really cool that you're already bringing us opportunities. So yeah, I definitely recommend have a think of your existing customers now. What could we do to support them across all the business applications? We talked about yesterday the size of the opportunity. It's only growing all the time. You think about, for example, the the seat penetration currently of dynamic modern work Microsoft 365 users into Dynamics. It's like 1% globally. There is a huge opportunity there. So 99% of customers using Microsoft 365, not using Dynamics, potentially not using Power Platform. The opportunity is huge, and we want to help you along the way. There's some really great resources, and a lot of these are in the partner teams channel, but there's a lot in there, so it's, it can be hard to navigate at times, but there are a lot of resources. I've sent a couple of partners, things like the Microsoft Partner Consultancies you get access to through your NPN, Cloud Enablement Desk, Business Applications Playbooks. There's some free sales and marketing collateral available as well, which is amazing. You can just download it and use. So there's some really great resources that are out there. So what I will say is do not hesitate to reach out to me directly. It's definitely going to take me some time to pick up all these emails, but it's absolutely brilliant that you are reaching out to me. If you need any support moving forward, like what are the next steps now? What can we do? Feel free to reach out and let's get plans in place. And what I can do is make sure, because we've got people from all over the world right now on this call, is make sure that we introduce you into the local resources as well at Ingram that can support you. So we'll hang on for a little bit if there's any questions. If not, everyone's going to get 25 minutes of their day back. So I will hang on for a sec. If anyone wants to speak up or write a question, I'm happy to hang on.
I asked about pricing before.
Okay. Okay, the virtual agent pricing. Okay, bear with me a second. Let's go through this. Unless Ed, you've just come off mute.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. I'm sounding even croakier after today. I think I'll validate this as we go through. I think Power Virtual Agent licensing is $1,000 a month. That allows up to 2,000 sessions.
Yes.
And a session is an interaction between a user and a bot, Leonard. So I can just read this verbatim. The session begins when a user topic is triggered, ends when one of these conditions is met. Either the user's questions are answered, or the conversation exceeds 60 minutes or 100 turns.
Yeah.
If somebody's been on for 100 questions and 100 turns, they probably deserve to have their session expiring on them anyway. They're never getting to the end of that questioning, are they? So it's $1,000 a month, and there's a top up if you need it at, give me 1 second. The top up is the initial $1,000 a month for 2,000 sessions. You can top it up at $450 for another additional 1,000 sessions.
So is this only for one domain, or can this be used across multiple domains?
That one I don't know.
We can take that question offline though and try and find out unless. So Craig's just dropped in a really good link for the pricing plans in Power Virtual Agents. There is also, I'm thinking a docs.microsoft.com is always a great link, but there'll be more information there. But we can definitely take that one offline and try and get that answer to you.
Thank you. I see Brian agrees with me on this one.
We'll definitely look into that one and just want to be sure that we give you the right information. That's all. We'll get back to you on that one. So that was Leonard. I will just make a note to make sure I get back to you.
I think it's at tenant level. There's a suggestion just in the footnotes around the pricing on Power Virtual Agent session capacity is pooled at the tenant level. So I'm assuming tenants across multiple environments, therefore.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right there. But what we'll do, if we get something that's sort of there in black and white and we can send over to you, we will do that as soon as possible, even if it's a link or like I say, a docs or a licensing guide, something, we'll get that over to you. But yeah, I mean, if people leave this and think of questions a week down the line or whatever, there's no limit to when you can reach out to us. We're always available, so feel free to reach out to us anytime with questions or just feedback, anything at all. It's really useful for us. Hopefully we can be as supportive as possible for you as our partners as well. Yeah, I can see my inbox is rising with requests, which is great. So yeah, everyone who's requested access to the Teams channel, I will be adding you in. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I can actually see if I can just share screen really quickly while I was just kind of talking and sharing. I'll show you. I'll do a bit of a tour of the Teams channel really quickly, just so you can kind of see. Because obviously we've had a lot of requests for it, and I think a lot of people that are in the call now are now in there. And if you're not, you will be. So let me just do a bit of a tour, so you can kind of see the kind of things that we post in here, and hopefully this is going to be extremely useful for you when you're added in. So as you can see, we do post just standard kind of posts in here as well. For example, when we're running workshops, I have an IoT Central webinar that I'm running with Microsoft at the end of the month. So we post things like that in there. So we try and make it so you're kind of the first to know about events and things that we're doing. Also, key announcements from events like Ignite, when Inspire happens, no doubt will be posted in there a lot as well. Just making sure that you're up to date with things and attending key events. We also, so as well as posting things in there, I'll just run through a couple of other things that we've got. So for example, the files area, this is where I posted before an image just highlighting that we have the information on App in a Day. That's now in there as well, because I saw quite a few people interested in that. So made sure that that's in there. But as well, just useful information and resources that we have created or we source from Microsoft as well. And we're also making sure that, for example, you have partner network resources. So things like, if you're lucky enough that you get co-op funding, with your rebates and incentives, there's guidebooks in there. We actually do a lot when it comes to co-op. So there's quite a lot of information in there on co-op, on how you can use your co-op and step-by-step guides and what you can use it for and so on. Also, Microsoft Partner of the Year. So Microsoft are accepting nominations for Partner of the Year at Inspire up until the 18th of April, I think the date is. I've had a number of calls with partners helping them with their nominations as well for Partner of the Year. So this is the sort of thing we're trying to do and trying to make sure that we're helping with as much as possible. And then across the top and just down the side, these are really useful links. That's the best way to put it. So for example, I know it says Dynamics 365 marketing collateral, but it's not just Dynamics. But really great websites and links that we've sourced. I'll just remove the Dynamics filter because what you'll find is there's over 5,000 bits of collateral in here for sales and marketing across all Microsoft clouds. It's a really great website. So we've just made sure that across the top, you've got access to some brilliant websites. So the free trials that you've used, I'll just open it up. There you go. Free trials for Dynamics, that's all in there. So we've just made sure that everything that we can think of that's really useful. Free training days. If you have finished today and you think you want to take a stab at Power Platform fundamentals and that's your next step, go for it. Have a look at this as well before you start paying for exams and things. Microsoft do run April 15th. I should probably drop that into I will drop that into the chat. If you attend that workshop, I will just click on it just to double check this, but normally you get to do the exam for free. So I will just click into there. Is it going to let me? It's opened up in a new window, so I'll just read it. You won't be able to see it, but I will just read it. I will drop this link into the chat as well. Let me just see. After completing this free training, you'll be eligible to take the fundamentals exam at no cost. So there you go. Those of you that hung on, now have a little secret. You can do fundamentals for free. So yeah, there's some really great resources in here. So that when we've been talking about it, I just thought I'd show it just so you can kind of see it, see what you're getting into. And then also we are running monthly community calls as well. So Hang on, we've seen the free Dynamics 365 page through an error at me. That's because I think the browser missed the app. Either way, let me click on. Right, okay, that's great. As long as you've got it, that's good. So yeah, lost my trail of thought there. But yeah, there's a lot of information in there. But what I will say is, feel free to reach out to us anytime. We want to make sure that we're being supportive as possible. There are a lot of resources out there, and we kind of make it our business to know about these resources and when you can use them and what you have access to, whether you're an action-packed silver or gold Microsoft partner. There's different benefits. Again, make sure you're making the most of those. They can really help you on your Power Platform journey, things like the consultancy hours that I've talked about. So yeah, definitely make sure you're reaching out to us. On the back of showing the Teams channel or anything at all, if there are any questions, I will hang on for a little bit longer. But in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me. You've seen some emails coming in. I will get to them. And then feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Follow me on Twitter if you've got a Twitter work account like myself. I post a lot of content and blogs and things like that, as do a lot of people at Ingram. So feel free to follow along. And again, Craig, thank you very much, and Ed as well. Two really great sessions today. So really thank you for making this a good event.
Oh, my pleasure, Matthew, and great stuff, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, Christian, the downloading of the recordings from yesterday, are you in? So because of like internal, external, and security and things like that, sometimes it's hard. I faced this problem before with an external trying to download the recording. What I have done is download it myself as an MP4, and it is now in the Partner Teams channel. So it can be watched from there. So if you want to have access to that and you want to see the recording, I'm going to drop my email address in again into the bottom. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll add you into that Teams channel, and then as well as the recording. There you go. Awesome, Brian. Thank you. I'm glad that's worked actually, because it's the first time I have done that in the Teams channel for a recording. So I'm glad that's worked. That's a that's a worry off my mind now. Brilliant. Okay, so the automate in a day. Let me have a look.
I think it's app in a day, not AI in a day.
Yeah, ak.ms, and it's app in a day. And again, Brian, all the resources for the app in a day are in the Teams channel as well. So if you want to get in there, just feel free to drop me an email, and I'll make sure to get you added in. Okay. Awesome. Well, it seems we are finishing 15 minutes early, which is never a problem, especially when it is 6:45 at night for me in the UK, and I haven't eaten in many hours, so I am going to go get some food. But yeah, there is no time limit on reaching out to us this stuff. One thing I will say, keep an eye out. We will be running an app in a day, but it's not till sort of April, so if you can jump on one sooner, feel free. But we will be running one out of a partner that we work with in the UK in April. So thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording there. And again, I will drop this into the Teams channel. It'll either be today or tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. And I look forward to reaching out to everyone very soon. Thanks a lot, everyone. And thank you, everyone who presented.